On today's episode, we'll talk about justifying camera moves, working with Brian DePalma, GoodFellas, raising Cain, and of course, your first job with Martin Scorcese, and he brought his parents along to watch. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I'm your host, Dave Comides, and I'm really excited to be in. Are we in New Jersey technically? Am I in New Jersey or Pennsylvania?
Technically, you crossed the Rubicon. You crossed the Delaware River, so, and that became New Jersey.
That's what it is. Yeah. I'm very excited to be in New Jersey, in the home of a great operator, storyteller, a visionary, Larry McConkey, who's getting very upset at me for saying all this. Larry's done a couple of things. I looked on your IMDb, 159 credits.
What?
Yep, 159. You one more and you get the straight 160. So just a couple of them, some things that people may have heard of. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Django Unchained, Hugo, The Sopranos, Kill Bill 1 and 2, Carlito's Way, Raising Cain, Silence of the Lambs, Bonfire of the Vanities, Miller's Crossing, some sort of shot in GoodFellas, which I don't remember. And the one I will end with, because it's actually one of my favorite movies, Birdie, which I didn't know you worked on. Such a great movie, such a great movie. Was given the 2008 Lifetime Achievement Award from the SOC, which apparently meant his career is over and he didn't listen. And in 2004, the Historical Shot Award, which is sort of an SOC award for shots done prior to when they gave SOC awards that should have gotten them for this shot. And again, this movie GoodFellas, which I guess people know about. I don't know. Is that a feature? Yeah, anyway.
I think it was a documentary, wasn't it?
It's a documentary. Exactly.
On the mafia or something like that?
Well, listen, thank you so much for having me here. It's really, it's great to talk to you.
Yeah. No, just keep talking. I like hearing all these great things about
No, it's your turn to talk.
Oh, damn.
Larry, it's very hard to get Larry to talk.
The greatest Steadicam operators that has ever been and will continue to be, I am sure, for many years. And it's an honor and a privilege to have you.
This is great.
Ask me questions and make me feel like I'm special.
Yeah, this may be tough because it's hard to get Larry to talk, so hopefully you'll come out of your shell. So tell me, how did you get into the film industry?
It's really none of your business, right?
So next question.
I mean, right. How did I get in? Okay, so one of the things I've learned is everybody that I've ever met in the film business, or what business are we in now?
I don't know. No, right now we're not in any business, right?
Well, that's true. The media business, film, digital, streaming.
Storytelling.
What is it? What do we storytelling? Visual.
I like
visual storytelling.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Okay, everybody I know who I've met is in this has a different answer. Yeah. So there's no like one path. Nope. That's for sure. You got to figure it out on your own.
Well, that's one of the things in talking to people and talking to younger operators. I think they don't. So one of the reasons why I started this is because people look at someone like you and think, oh, well, everything he does is gold and everything works perfectly. Exactly. And they don't realize that we're just holding on by our teeth most of the time going, I wonder if this is going to work.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's no good.
And that it's not, well, I decided I was going to be a big Steadicam operator, so I became a big Steadicam. So how'd you get into the film industry?
I had to take a gut course at Cornell because I stopped being interested in math, mostly because I smoke a lot of marijuana, and it kind of... that part of my brain disappeared, and so I decided to make up I just walked out of the course halfway through. Okay. So I had to make up credits for a summer. Oh. And so the gut course that I picked was film.
You call it a gut course? What's a gut course?
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, we got to find another term. We
Okay.
can look it up and see if it applies in any way that
I don't
works.
know. Anyway,
I
okay,
needed something that
something to
would
fill
not
credit.
tax me, that would just give me credit, and that maybe I would enjoy during the summer.
something that you could achieve while smoking marijuana and do well in the class.
Not
essentially.
achieve, just get a
through it.
credit.
Okay, yeah.
So what would be, different from actually studying anything, and a film course? Oh, that's interesting. So that like blew my mind. I don't know exactly what about it, other than we were given cameras and we could run around and shoot pictures, and then we could see them later.
So did you have an interest in film before that, or just
Stills, for sure.
okay, yeah.
But not film, I guess, because that's expensive. I don't think it really occurred to me.
And it wasn't a big thing that everybody was doing back then, right? That was still sort of a niche.
No, and in at Cornell, there was no film program, but there was a what did they call it? You could have a major in, I don't even know what they called it, but film was like one little part of.
You could like minor in film or something like that?
Kind of like
or
that.
whatever.
Not,
Or specialize or something?
Yeah, I don't remember the terms. I busted that open, by the way. But our professor, Gordon Beck, who, bless him, would teach history, aesthetics, and then there was a student filmmaker organization, which I became president of right away after that.
Okay.
IFMAC, Independent Filmmakers at Cornell, which had a standing grant to do whatever we wanted with, which is what we did, was we bought camera equipment to help the students who were trying to do the little side part of Gordon's program where you'd actually shoot some things.
Okay.
So we owned the camera gear, we owned the editing equipment, and we bought the film stock and gave it to people. And my policy when I took over as president was, well, I'll give you a roll of film, any help you want, like how you expose and stuff like that. When you bring the roll back, if half of it is exposed where we can see it and it looks like focused enough that we can see, you get another roll. And that was it. So, and I opened it up not to corner anybody in the Ithaca area who
And this
wanted
is
to come
16
in.
millimeter film?
16 millimeter,
So
yeah.
a roll is 100 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one of
Exactly.
those spools, right?
3 minutes. Yeah, daylight spools. so
Daylight
you could
spools.
load it.
Daylight
Yeah.
spools, yeah.
And I guess we didn't have any quiet blimp cameras. I mean, it was,
It's like ARRIs or something?
no, we didn't have anything that sophisticated.
Oh, really?
Bolex, I think,
Bolex,
and
okay.
maybe Bell and Howell.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that was the way I started. Like, this is just something for everybody else, including me, to just like play.
Experiment.
Yeah. So I actually went into Cornell trying to figure out what I would do.
Yeah.
And the only clear probable was a concert pianist. So I was following that pretty seriously.
To become a concert pianist?
Yeah, I played piano for many years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there was, and I learned a lot of important filmmaking lessons from my teacher,
Your piano teacher?
my mentor, piano teacher isn't right because he was a well-known pianist, but and one of them, and you won't be able to figure this out from audio only, but one of the most important things, which is still seminal to my whole life, especially with, what did we decide to call this? Visual storytelling.
Visual storytelling.
Is that I was having trouble with a particular piece where I had to go and hit a note up here, and then,
From one side
can
of
you
the
hear this?
Yeah, from one side of the
over
keyboard
here,
to the other.
and then
over there. Yep. all
and
the
then
way
back, and boom, and they said, "Why are you looking?" Well, to hit the right note, but you're missing it. Yeah, I know, it's really hard. They said, "Well, this is when you miss it or not."
When your hand is in the air.
No, when you lift off.
When you lift off.
Because what you are doing is starting an arc, which is absolutely etched in your soul,
Yeah.
results in you landing there. That's what any great shot is. Or, I mean, including the long shots that I've done.
Yeah.
It's all about, you start here with the intention of landing there. And you don't fuck around on the way.
Yeah.
It's predetermined. It's destiny. It's
So it's about leaving the keyboard that determines where you land on the keyboard.
how you leave the
How
keyboard.
you leave the keyboard.
Knowing that you're going here. And now you don't have to look.
And so from an operating point of view, it's more about starting the pan, and if you start it at the right time, and you'll land it more correctly. Is that the
No, the reason you start is to end up somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
and to do it in the most beautiful, elegant, without any distraction, clear-sighted
Yep.
path. And there's so many analogies that I've come up with in trying to justify what I do. And one of the images I think I really got that helped me a lot was, I'm a chauffeur. My audience is in the back seat. I don't want anybody surprised unless I want to scare them. Okay. But basically, I want them to know we're about to turn. This is how fast we're turning. This is where we're going. And now we're coming out of that turn. And now we're back safe and we're going straight. And all Steadicam shots that I've done have that as a basic element.
That's a great analogy. That's amazing.
And you don't want them to throw up in your car.
No.
No. So
Unless you want them to throw up in your car, in which case that's another
exactly,
thing.
but
it's about control, right?
you want that to be a real shock surprise, which
Yeah.
I've done a few times.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work unless you've given them such a carefully curated, comfortable, and I want them not to know that I'm steering. I want them to think that they're driving the car. So everything that I've done as I created an aesthetic is about that, but it didn't start that way.
Yeah.
Like so much in life, especially using these weird contraptions, these, what are they? Steady? And they're not steady, right? They're totally unsteady smooth cams.
It's you who makes it steady.
Yeah, and it isn't easy. It's getting easier.
It's getting, yeah.
But really, part of the aesthetic, and this is what gets so interesting for me, we are tangled up with this mechanics and electronics, but we're trying to somehow liberate ourselves from that. And I'm looking for the word, but I haven't had any sleep, so it's not coming. But be able to, out of that, become something totally separate from it and not related to it. And what do you call that? Find a word. Diana, what's the...
You mean, but basically moving past the mechanicals and the machinery back to storytelling or back to...
I wouldn't... Storytelling, something almost spiritual, something, a thought, a breath, it's not mechanical, and it's not limited by, as it is, by gravity or inertia or physics or anything other than it's grounded completely in them. No, you're liberating from all of that into just satisfying the wish that you create the audience to go somewhere and to see something.
So this is jumping way ahead, but because we're talking about this, let me ask you this question. When you started, what year did you start Steadicam?
Well, judging from the two films I just saw screen back in my
Ballpark.
career,
I mean, early
it
80s?
must have been, late 70s, early 80s.
So you
somewhere.
were right at the beginning when the gear...
Oh, totally. When Bound for Glory came out,
Yeah.
the next day I went out with my friend and we looked for where could we get one of these things. What are they
Really?
called?
Bound-
And I lived in Philadelphia. I didn't know Garrett. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw that shot. I said, that's for me.
Really?
Wow, somebody made that for me.
See,
this is
it's funny
awesome.
because I was talking to Garrett about Garrett Brown, the inventor of the Steadicam, about this, and I can't put myself in the shoes of someone's... I've seen that shot, right? The first Steadicam shot done, really.
My God, it
But-
still holds
But
up.
I can't put myself in the shoes of seeing that and not understanding how it could be done, because I saw it in retrospect, right? I knew what a Steadicam was. I'd seen the GoodFellas
Oh, I
shot
didn't.
by
It
then.
was magic.
Exactly. So did it just... I mean, when you went into it, did you go into it because someone had said, like,
No,
hey,
it was just
you're
like, this is a
watching the
cool movie.
Yeah.
And then suddenly
this happened, and you realized that it
holy
was something
shit,
impressive.
I almost stood up and started to scream in the
Because
theater.
it's about 3 minutes longer. I mean, it goes for a while, and he weaves
Yeah,
between
but all it was after it came down as a beautiful crane shot, and then it started to follow David Carradine. It was like,
So you
because-
you expected it to stop and
well,
David
duh,
Carradine
that's
to
what
walk
all
away.
shots
Yeah.
do. Come on.
But
They're
again,
defined by this
I can't mentally put myself
technology.
in that. That must have been amazing. That's incredible.
It was extraordinary because it's what I had been trying to do handheld because it's all I had to do.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't afford dollies. And anyway, a dolly is just A to B and you're done.
Exactly.
Crane, beautiful, but then you're done.
You're done.
So it's all about, and has been, including and definitely through Maisel, where I think I was started to call it transcendence of camera motion, so that you're not restricted by these physical limitations or these definitions, which Amy Sherman Palladino, the real creator behind Maisel, would ask for a shot, not by saying, as everybody else in my experience would have said, dolly shot, crane shot, this is a fixed shot. This is no.
A way of explaining it, you're saying. Yeah.
Well, she wouldn't want to be defined very consciously by how you do it.
Yeah.
It's
so
not.
How does she describe it to you?
To my brother generally, because he was the A operator, and I would come in to try to help figure out
the big
she
shots.
wants to do what.
Yeah.
We should be with these people, and I have to say, my brother Jim was equal partner in developing what became the style of the movie because after a while she would say, but can't we keep going? Her notion was, and she comes from stage background.
Was she a dancer?
Dance, and loves musicals. And so you have an audience, you have a stage, and they operate with the stage, and it's unbroken. Everybody's watching. And everything that happens on that stage is connected. She wanted that in a film, but even more, because if somebody walked through a doorway into the next room, let's follow and see where they're going, and create situations where people would not be bound by, oh, we can't go any further because the dolly track ends here.
Exactly.
Or forget that.
Yeah.
So no, she would describe things like, I'm going to see the whole room when we come in, and when they enter and cross over to, because it was all based on dialogue, staging, which he had already worked out.
Yep.
And I'd love to go in, and I really want to see the two of them interacting, and then they break away, and then we do that, and somebody else comes in. So she didn't want it to stop, and she didn't want it to be artificially constrained by technological limitations, which comes back to what I'm talking about, transcendence in general. So can we do that to my brother? And he would almost always say, sure.
And then you get on the phone.
How
with you
the
and go,
hell?
how
Well,
do you-
when it became really weird, yes.
Yeah. By the way, because we haven't said it, you're talking about your brother Jim McConkey, who is a phenomenal operator, and I actually am going to sit down and talk with him at some point. But to have the two of you together must be an impressive thing.
Well,
to watch.
what's nice, I mean, he started his career in film, but then, so I can say that, I guess.
You could say film back then.
I could say
there was
film
no
back
digital,
then.
right?
What's that? Digital? What?
Well, it's like
there
you were
was this
saying,
video thing in between.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Saying we're filmmakers has a certain ring to it, and saying we're digital makers doesn't really have the same.
That's shit,
seems
isn't it?
cheap.
I'm not making fucking.
That's why I like
digital
storytellers.
shit.
I like storytelling.
Yeah, analog as opposed to.
But I got sidetracked though. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, me too. Quite a bit.
But that's great. But by the way, no, I like hearing that about Amy Sherman Palladino because
extraordinary. And her husband Dan Palladino, who was a co-director and writer and producer, and yes. But Amy really is a spark. And we all. It's a flame that we all burn up in.
But some of the best directors that I've worked with, and there was one who was a younger director who I specifically talked to about it, she would say, so let's do a steady cam shot from here to here to here. And I felt like she would be open to this. So I said to her early on, hey, can I ask you a favor? And if this doesn't work for you, don't. But just don't say anything about equipment. Just tell me the feeling, tell me the story, tell me what you want to see. And she said, really? And I said, yeah, because if you say Steadicam, then suddenly my mind is thinking, okay, I got to go over that. I'd rather just have the idea. And actually, the funny thing is she went, oh God, that's so much easier. And I said, yeah,
yes.
let me. And I said, and here's the thing, I'll give you 3 ideas and you'll decide what it is because I want to make sure I'm going on the right path. But it leaves me open. So I love that. But what I wanted to ask you was, so you started really when there was no such thing as a Steadicam operator in a weird way, and the equipment didn't really work
Not
the way
in a
it does.
weird way. It didn't exist.
So so you were part of that group that had to figure out, A, what does a Steadicam operator do? B, how do we do it? And what can we do? And
what is a Steadicam? There wasn't any such thing. There was that beautiful image that moved through space, like in a way I have been dreaming and trying. I spent one time with a whole afternoon in a mall, I forget why, making a film of my own with handheld, trying to perfect a way to walk that looked like a normal human perspective, like no jarring. And as you know, and now with all these gimbals, they do the same thing. Your eyes have a way of locking a background, particularly, making it perfect, and then seeing things move in the foreground, which is what stabilized gimbals do, but trying to do it in a way that absolutely emulated the way our eyes do when we're walking.
Which you can't really.
I did.
Oh, you did?
I got 15 seconds of perfect on a 400-foot roll of film. And it was like,
You
yes!
you just hit the right cadence, basically, or something.
You had to counteract any.
You got to move the camera up as your body's moving down, and yeah.
But angularly perfect, so that the background never shifted, but you were going up and down. So I had to counteract the tendency to change the angle, and then give the cadence and So
I could see you on set turning to the director and going, "Yeah, we got 15 seconds of that shot. I think I'll give you 20 seconds the next time." So it wouldn't work well.
Well, we started out so saw that, and one of my career really started as a result of going to Temple in their film program after getting the one and I think only, for sure, independent filmmaking degree from Cornell, because there wasn't one.
You created it or something?
In a way, but my dad was teaching and my mother was working at Cornell, and he was one of the best writers that's ever written anything.
What, writer of stories or of books?
Mostly, maybe that's where I get it from. Mostly his own brand of writing, which he, when pressed, would say autobiographical fiction. And I mean, part of it is what we were just talking about, memory. I mean, anything we think we've experienced, even at the instant of seeing it, is a memory already.
Yeah.
It's basically clues you've seen, and your brain puts that together, says, "Oh, I know what this is," and gives you a picture.
But it's inherently flawed on some level, probably. That's what I've heard.
It's a construct.
Yeah.
Based on your past experience. And so eyewitness testimonies are the least reliable of all. You see something, your brain presents an image to you of what you think you've seen,
Sure.
But it's not an immediate perception of it. It is a memory of things like that you've seen, and then maybe go, "Oh, wait a minute, it's not that."
Yeah.
Wait a minute, it's not that either. And you finally maybe put it together with enough clues.
Yeah.
But our day-to-day instantaneous perception is not real time. It's mostly through memory. And our memory changes. So your memory of something one week, the next week it's already been altered. You maybe don't understand that.
30 years later.
Yes.
It's a completely different thing. Yeah.
But what he did was to talk about his own life. He had struggled to write in various forms, and finally decided to invent this other form for himself, where he talked about his own life, but understanding that it was changed by his perception of it and through time.
Yeah.
He even did one book that was over a period of 7 or 8 years, talking sort of about the same things that happened to him, but that changed through time with this memory.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
but you went to a master's degree at Temple?
At Temple, yes. But at Cornell, there was I talked about sort of a minor in theater arts.
Yeah.
I think it was the theater arts department. That's what it was. And I took those film courses. Then I became the independent filmmaker at Cornell president. And then I immediately changed how it worked, because that's the way I am. And I heard through my dad that this is a time of great unrest. This is where protests and Black Panthers and everything was going on. And everything was being thrown up in the air as maybe we're wrong to have these specific categories of what people will study. So there was exploring at a faculty level the notion of independent majors. Then perhaps there were things that university had to offer, and you could put together these different programs into something that no one had thought of before as a degree. I said, "Oh, I know, I want to." And the only thing they had come up with was a general notion that, well, you'd have to have an advisor who approved the structure of what you were planning. So I said, film. And one of my dad's best friends, and I knew him very well, I went to him and said, "So this is what I want to do." And essentially created for myself my own degree, which was in filmmaking, but it consisted of anything audio or visual, meaning theater, okay, I was already there, but sculpture, music, dance, anything that I thought had anything to do with visual.
So basically, from a very early start, you were taking the system and going, I'm going to bend it to be what I want it to be.
Absolutely.
Which is what you did as a film.
Probably the most important thing you can learn. Starting out in a system
Yeah.
is tough. You're not going to succeed initially if you're within a system rather than just total guerrilla independent filmmaking, which is probably where you should start.
Yeah.
But if you're within a system, you have to conform to expectations or you're rejected immediately. You're just noise and you're getting in the way.
But if you're outside of the system, then
You're free to do it. But once you're in the system and you get it and you understand it and you begin to have confidence in your own take on things, then that's when you need to go for it and take the risk of, how about this? Just as you were saying, you'd love a director to just tell you the intent.
Yeah.
And you figure out a couple of ways that you figured out that should be able to tell that story that she wants or he wants. Got to be sure to include people who are men rather than just women.
Absolutely.
Although women,
all people,
they're the artists. Women are better than men. Come on. Have you seen Barbie?
I haven't yet, actually, but I'm very excited.
I
just have not gotten around to it. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh my
and I hear
God!
great things.
Multi-layered,
It's a billion-dollar movie,
experience.
right? Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
But
But I like the fact that it's getting to do that. I mean, it's a great film, from what I understand.
It's an impossible film.
Yeah, which is in and of itself.
It's like a 18-layer cake, and all those parts don't fit with any other parts. And somehow Greta...
she's a talented director. Yeah, no question.
Yeah, but not just a director, somebody who brought all these disparate elements like corporate sponsors and people who love Barbie dolls and whole polemics about male versus female roles in society and on and on and on and on.
And it works. That's what I've heard.
It works, huh? Well, I'm still thinking about it, and there are parts that made me very uncomfortable and stuff that I loved.
But that's good, though, right? I mean, it
think it is
an
good.
emotion in you, which is what we're trying to do at the end of the day.
Even more than that, it mostly got me thinking about a lot of things. I'd already been thinking, but it wasn't
That's what I mean by it works. It actually, you don't just leave it and forget it.
You'll see, when you see the movie, a place where... Barbies are transformed. I don't want to give too much away if you haven't seen it.
No.
And I said, God, I wish the maggots could be done like that. Change their whole opinion about things. But that's what it does. It's able to influence you by bringing you in with all these other things that are amazing.
I got you.
Okay, how did we get on that?
I don't know, but it's okay.
So I put together that degree. So I got an independent filmmaking degree from Cornell.
And then you went to Temple.
Well, then I followed my first wife. If you're in the film business, you have more than one wife generally.
Okay.
My first wife, and she got into the graduate program at University of Pennsylvania. So I followed her, figuring I could take my degree in film and I could find a job.
You were a filmmaker, right? I have my degree. Yeah.
So every place I went, they said, "What? You have a degree in film?" Sorry, kid, we're not interested.
Yeah.
And push me out the door.
The paper.
Yeah, right. That was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
No, we need somebody. I went to NFL. I thought, man, that's fun. This would be great. Is it, look, kid, after politely listening to my whole pitch, I said, look, it's so much easier to teach a football fan how to run a camera than it is to take a camera operator to try to teach him football. I mean, forget about it. So humbled, I took jobs to support myself and my wife, like a hobby store, because I love radio control model airplanes. I was getting into that big time, and a camera department in a department store, where I tried to convince people not to buy from me but go across the street because it was cheaper there. And no, I'm not going to do the register, because all it will do is fuck me.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake, you're going to hold me accountable. And if I do everything perfectly, nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. So they would sorry, you want me here? So I did that for like a year, at which point I was qualified for the state level college, which Temple was.
Yeah.
I could go there, like almost free. Plus I got a fellow, what do you call it?
Fellowship?
teaching.
Like a grant or something?
Tell me something. Tell me something I don't know.
I don't know.
So anyway, I was participating in that program. Part of the responsibility was to help teach some courses.
Oh, so you're basically
Teaching assistant. Is that it?
TA.
So they
TA teaching.
So they
assistant.
paid me.
Yeah. So
to go to what?
Yeah. That's
And I got some really good experience, various ways making film. But more importantly, I met core of really 3 fellow filmmakers who all went on in totally different directions after not graduation because nobody got a degree.
Yeah.
Go into that later. One person finally did.
Okay.
One of the requirements was after taking all the coursework and doing it, you had to make a Academy Award winning film, which you had to.
That's a requirement.
Yeah, you had to do that. That was part of the and you had to do it all with funding outside the school, and you couldn't use their equipment or anything.
Okay.
So you had to produce,
But it had to be of that quality level.
Yeah,
a
then
feature or a short.
Well, I had to win an Academy Award, I guess, whatever length that took.
Okay, so probably well, they have shorts. I mean, so I didn't know if.
Yeah, you could probably sneak in that way. I don't remember the language in that.
As long as you won an Academy Award, you got your degree.
Well, yeah, as long as you financed it completely outside, did it all yourself. Plus, Temple would have censorship rights and 50% of like.
Wow.
I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
So, fuck yeah. So I got a grant, and I got the grant and I was awarded it. But unfortunately, part of it was being critical of University of Pennsylvania because I saw how they were land grabbing. They would basically destroy neighborhoods and put in corporate headquarters of various things. So it was more about neighborhoods and the structure that evolved in West Philadelphia.
You're saying your film was?
Film, this was a grant.
So was it a documentary?
It would have been.
Or would, okay.
And I was awarded the grant. And that congressman called me up and said, look, and he was on like the board or whatever it was for, I said, you have to take the language out about the University of Pennsylvania. I said, well, that's
the whole point. Yeah.
And he said, well, okay, you lost your grant.
Wow.
So that was it. Better facing reality. Like maybe I shouldn't be producing fucking film.
Well, it's an early indication of how things actually work, right? You get a pretty good lesson at what.
True. So maybe I should retreat in just visual language. In any case, there was finally one student after me who won an Academy Award for a film he made, and so he got the first Master's of Fine Arts in Film from Temple. I think they changed the program a bit since then.
It seems like a high bar.
Yeah, I was ready for the challenge.
That's cool.
You know, what the hell? But in any case, I met 3 great friends who then went on, and I began to shoot films. One of them was Bob Muggy, who I mentioned.
Yep.
We just had a screening of the second and third film I think we shot. I shot with him, for him. Yeah. Well, what else is there? Well, I mean, no, but some of my other friends went on to make theatrical things. And so I had a broad experience. It's the people you know, and it's how you get along with them, because this is a collaborative business.
And I've also found that it isn't always the people that you expect. Like, you know, you're working with the director and you think you'll work with that director again, but it could be a production assistant who ends up like, or it could be anybody. It can come from anywhere. And over my career anyway, it has. I'm sure you've as well gotten called for things where you didn't think maybe that was the person who would call you or whatever for the next movie.
Yeah, and I try not to have expectations my whole life, and that way I don't get disappointed, I suppose.
That helps a lot. So let me ask you a question. You saw Bound for Glory. You said, I have to do this, but this is going to...
First of all, what is it?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I was just going to say this is going to be hard for some people listening, but there was no phones, there was no internet, there were encyclopedias.
I don't know how I figured it out.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I don't know. I must have talked to friends or something. And again, Garrett lived in Philadelphia.
But you had no idea,
but I had no idea who he was.
And let me ask you a question. On Bound for Glory, was there even like a credit of specialized camera or something?
Know.
So it wasn't.
I can't remember. Yeah. I don't have a memory. Much.
But I don't think there was because it was basically
what was
that one thing.
Yeah, it was a prototype, really, first practical.
What would you put?
One magazine only, had to reload.
He was telling me
takes.
that, and it's funny because, again, what I was saying before is everybody looks at the end of the story and goes, well, everything's... He was saying that, he's this guy who came in. Everybody's sort of doubting whether he can do what he can do. He's not completely certain he can do what he can do. And that the mag change was like 10 minutes because it was this new type of mag. So that everybody was basically upset with him because it's like, you've upset the apple cart, right? Which I never would have considered. But it makes sense.
Even
like that.
my experience. So we'll get back to like how that developed into my career, I suppose. But when I started coming on sets, on features, when I appeared, everybody would kind of retreat into the corners. And they don't want to be associated.
This was back when you were a specialized person being called in for a specialized shot. It was long before now when you're on the whole show and whatever. Yeah, so they wanted nothing to do with you, meaning, or they were sort
Correct.
of like,
they did not want to. Well, one, they didn't know how to interact with me or what I was going to do. And also, they didn't want to be there as part of the disaster that was about to happen.
I see this is going south. I'm going to go somewhere
I don't
else.
want to be a part of this. I mean, if I'm asked directly to do something, okay. And assistants wanted nothing to do with trying to pull focus on this thing. Are you insane?
And again, setting the table back when you started, the only focus pulling was your hand on the knob on the camera touching the camera. Right?
Before Steadicam required a remote.
Yeah.
Especially the early ones that didn't work
well.
No.
I remember very specifically a big shot and then pulling, and then they would come up and run up and go, okay, I'm on 4 feet, that's on 4 feet. I know it was on focus at the end of the shot. I can tell you that because it didn't always work around. Right.
No, and there were reasons for that, and I was part of fixing so they were. Just last night, the first time using Steadicam with Bob, huge difference between like 2 years between the first film that we screened last night, which was on Sun Ra, which was all handheld, maybe it was in tripod.
Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing like a dolly, grips. None of that existed. It was like 4 of us making this film. So then a couple years later, where I've had a Steadicam now, and I started to learn how to use it, which is key because learn how to use it all on my own.
Without anybody really knowing how to use it, right? You were sort of making it up as you went.
Oh, yeah. But it had been made for me, remember? When I saw the shot Bound for Glory, I knew that had been made for me. It was really cool.
Okay.
However I found out what it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
But in any case, we saw some shots from the Gil Scott-Heron movie, and every once in a while you'd see me from one of the other cameras.
Oh.
And there was Tasmikos, my assistant then, with his hand on my homemade, modified radio control.
Oh, really?
Throttle focus system.
But this is you're doing Steadicam, or you're doing
Steadicam.
Okay.
So
you made this at home.
Like virtually everything I use.
Yeah.
One way or another. Yeah. So there wasn't one. I couldn't afford what was available that Semper Products had. 2, it didn't work. And if you look at Garrett's early work, there's a lot of bad focus. It's not necessarily the assistant, it's the gear.
It was
didn't work, lots of interference. And I was a new kid on the block, so nobody was going to listen to me when having a background in radio control model airplanes and all that equipment, he lent me once his system, and it didn't work at all. I mean, at all. And he said, "But I just used it. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I don't know. So magic happens around Garrett.
Yeah.
But I opened it up because I have to use this tomorrow. And I found a wire missing in it. And I discovered, too, what they were doing, which was using an AM radio system from an American company, Kraft, who, when I called them and talked to them about it, had a straight swap out, same board, same price, but FM.
Oh, which was more reliable.
Well, worked.
Yeah, which is more reliable.
Yeah. And I called whoever it was. I didn't know anybody. They didn't know me. And I said, listen, if you just change the part number you're ordering to this, your radios will work significantly better. Like totally different. Yeah, right. Thanks. And they didn't do it. That became with my relationship with John Seitz, one of the first things we did in his company was swap out and also change the wiring, which is from the controls down into the radio was unshielded. So anybody with a walkie-talkie nearby. So there were many reasons why you couldn't get focus. I started off, I couldn't afford that anyway, but I built my own. And I saw it there, a little white,
That's great.
weird, craft radio or whatever it was back then. But I know we were on a thread. How did I get into this? So somehow I learned that it was called Steadicam.
Yeah, you found out.
And I found out that Camera Mart in New York City was a rental house.
Yeah.
No longer, but
No.
and they had a Steadicam. I think a
I was going to
Steadicam.
say a Steadicam.
And I believe, and I'd love to hear from you if you ask Garrett about this, but I think the thesis was, I mean, he had been using a Steadicam for years by then, or things leading up to that final iteration.
Yeah.
So it's no big deal. You put it on, you walk around with it. Maybe not even understanding himself at that point how he was doing it so beautifully.
I didn't ask him about it. I think that probably, like you're saying, he'd probably been doing it in pieces for so long that he had picked up stuff. It's one of those things I often tell people when I taught my daughter how to drive.
Does that work?
Well, yeah, it worked well. They're great drivers. But you know, I've been
So you're saying that you're a great teacher. That's what you just said.
I'll take that.
Okay.
But you know, I've been driving for 30 some years, and my daughter said, "Hey, when you make a right turn, how do you know that you're not going to hit the curb?" And I looked at her and I was like, I don't know. I just don't hit the curb. I mean, you don't think about these things, right? You slowly learn stuff and you forget.
Yeah, which is a huge issue and part of the way I try to train people about Steadicam.
Yeah.
And so a couple of things that occurred to me. One was in high school, taking driving lessons in a little course, and we'd have like three of us and our coach, driver, teacher. Yeah. And there was one girl who had never even thought about driving, but, you know, required by her parents. I don't know. Anyway, and the instructor was shit. So basically, she's driving along and then want to make a turn. So she turned the steering wheel, and we would make the turn and go into the ditch.
Okay.
And the instructor was like, you know, we would help push the car back out, and we go at another turn and go back in the ditch again. And it turned out that she understood that you turned by rotating the wheel, and her expectation was when you stopped rotating it, you would stop turning.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So this is big.
So she's turning it all the way as opposed
Well,
to turning
she's just turning it
Yeah.
to get it to turn, and when she wants to stop turning, she just stops turning the
And she
wheel.
doesn't turn it back center. Yeah.
Well, why would you do that? It's rotating the wheel that causes the turn.
Now we're going that way.
Now we just stop turning the wheel, and we'll stop turning.
Nobody explained this to her.
No, of course he wouldn't. He was totally shit instructor. But my point is that's a very basic skill that you maybe learn kind of, unconsciously or something? And the biggest analogy I always have, especially about Steadicam, is a bicycle. Very few people who ride bicycles understand how they turn. And even those who are very experienced, when I explain it to them, you know, when you want to turn left, you always turn the handlebars to the right. No, I don't. Yes, you do. Otherwise, you won't turn. What are you talking about? So with a bicycle, if you turn the front wheel to the right, the bike naturally falls to the left.
Oh, the back of the bike, basically. So
Not the back, like the whole thing. So you're nicely balanced, and then you turn the wheel, and the bike starts to go off to the right, and you fall to the left. And then you quickly turn back to the left to get back in balance. So every left turn is preceded inevitably by a right turn and then a left.
Oh.
This is part of the reason why people have such a hard time learning how, and then they get it and they don't know how they got it.
And
never
think about it again. Yeah.
No, but you have to. When I started, my great joy in life for a while was motorcycle riding, and then taking courses that would really help you avoid obstacles and things. That became very clear. So in order, if you had a pothole coming in front of you, if you wanted to go to the left of it, you'd have to steer to the right first. The bike would start falling to the left, then you would turn left. Well, then you hit the pole.
Yeah.
So you had to learn to maybe do the evasion just before it, go off to the right, it starts to fall to the left, and you've gone around it, and now you're back in balance. And so you had to be very clear about that to avoid little obstacles and get really good at it. So Steadicam is very, very similar in these respects. And Garrett, by then, I don't think he even understood the skills he had developed. I shouldn't speak for him, but I'm speaking for him.
No, but that's human nature, I think. There's stuff you learn that you just inherently know, and you move on from that because you want to learn new stuff, and you don't think about it.
But going back to the piano lesson, how do you learn how to hit that note?
Yeah.
And it took an instructor of great experience, expertise, and mastery of the piano to explain to me that it was when you lift it off from here that you either made it or you didn't.
From
it
one
wasn't
side of the keyboard to the other.
and it also wasn't about like midway trying to decide if you were going to hit it and looking for where you're gonna go. If you do that, that's the unconscious version of how you execute a move, a change in speed, direction, or whatever.
Yeah.
But only way you're going to do it reliably and be able to not think at the same time is to learn that skill that it's the liftoff that predicts and requires that you will hit that note.
Yeah.
So I think you have to hold both things at once. It's tricky. With any elaborate Steadicam move in particular, you have to really understand the mechanics of what makes it move, what makes it change in space, all of that. And at some point, then you have to let that go and just let the idea flow and transcend those mechanical
Well, and this
operations.
is what I was going to ask you about before, and we got sidetracked, which is great because all this is great. Is it seems like there's that point where it's like, here's the equipment. How do I make it do stuff? How do I make it do? And then at some point you move past that to where you're no longer thinking about the equipment and you're just thinking about the shot.
I disagree strongly. You have to hold both at the same time.
So you never let go of
You
that.
cannot let
But
go.
when you're walking with a Steadicam, you're not thinking every minute.
Yes, I am.
You really?
Yes. Now, at some point, if you get enough takes, how many good... The way we really learned something, like when I was doing classical piano, I would struggle with a particular move or operation, or I go to sleep, I wake up the next day, oh, I'm doing it. So you really learn things well by sleeping, which is a struggle for me these days, which is part of the reason I blabber on a little bit today. But the point is, we don't have that luxury. So when we're trying to figure out an elaborate Steadicam move, you've got to somehow do what sleeping does, which is allow it to seep into some subconscious level, but you don't have the luxury of forgetting about the particulars that allow it. So my whole career anyway, I've been very conscious of the fact that I can't let go of understanding the physics and the practicality, all of that, but I have to do something that will result in that arc on the piano that ends up where I want it to end. But if I don't worry about the mechanics of how I'm doing that, it won't happen. So if you allow yourself to just forget about all that stuff, then you may end up with something sublime, but you could easily stumble. Like recital on piano, if you get to the point where you're just doing it and jonesing and it's really cool, and then you miss a note or something, that's it. You're done. You're toast. You cannot continue because you don't know the mechanics. You were just going with the flow. You can't forget the mechanics. I remember one of the coolest documentaries I've shot with one of my friends, Chris Wilkinson from Temple, was on the Van Cliburn piano competition.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they flew us around the world. Well, we flew ourselves around the world with a crew of like 2, 3, 4.
That must have been great for you being a piano aficionado and to see the best of the best.
Yes. One of the things that stuck with me in interviewing these pianists who were part of the competition, one of them was saying that often he would take a piece before trying to perform it and play it like 1/4 speed. That breaks the automatic response, reflex, unconscious way of doing it and brings him back to the mechanics of how he do it. And if he could get through that after many repetitions, then he could put it back together and he could do the flowing
because
beautiful.
He has the muscle memory and the understanding of the technical that he has to do.
He's not,
at that point,
what you were suggesting, just going to something not thoughtful, you have to have both at the same time. And you don't get the one without the other, unless you get a night's sleep in between, maybe, which we never do. Almost never do. So Steadicam. So whatever that thing was, we learned from Bound for Glory that's what it was somehow. Chris Wilkinson, who I just mentioned, and myself, and we went to Camera Mart called, hey, you got this Steadicam thing? Yeah, we got one. You rent it? Sure. Okay. Can we come down and get one? Well, sure. So we drove to New York City from Philadelphia, and it was kind of amazing because they didn't know how it worked, really, much about it at all.
Yeah.
So they said, well, you strap this thing here, there, and then this goes in there with the arm thing, and then you put it on. But tell you what, go into this little office. It was a little tiny, like 10 foot or 8 foot by 8 foot space.
Yeah.
Put it all together and give you like 10 minutes. If you don't fall over, you can come out. And then we'll watch you wander around with it. And if it looks like you're not going to break the gear, essentially, you can rent.
Their way of saying we want to make sure you don't screw it up. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Or hurt
Sure.
yourself, hurt our equipment, whatever. But they had no way of teaching how to use it.
Nobody knew.
No.
There was one guy.
And I think Garrett, and I think I've talked to him about this, but I'm not sure. I may have made it up. I mean, I make everything up that I remember ultimately. That his assumption was, well, duh, you just put it on. And if you know the way it assembles,
you just do it.
You can then learn it. And once you've learned it, it's like riding a bike, which to me, I thought, well, wait a minute. I know about riding a bike, and it's not that easy.
Okay.
Then you're just fine. So when you need a Steadicam, you just go rent it, and the operator just operates that shot, and you set it back to a rental house.
Yeah.
All based around rental houses, not individual owner operators, which is the only way it really works.
Of course,
we discovered
but
in retrospect.
They didn't know that at that time.
Yeah. So this was immediately after Bound for Glory. I had my hands on a Steadicam.
Really?
We proved ourselves worthy of not falling over and tripping, and took it back with us. And stayed up all night I think Chris was working for Bell Telephone then at Pennsylvania, and we had a little studio. So we went, and all night we stayed up, alternating back and forth, trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And okay. And then Chris really loved it too, but he was the director and essentially producer with money from Bell Telephone, making his reward for doing what they asked most of the year was he could make a movie that they would sponsor that would be just part of their giving back to the community, whatever. Okay. So we would make some really cool films. He really wanted to operate it too, but he finally realized I can't do this and direct.
Yeah.
No, okay, so you do it.
You do it, yeah.
And without much sleep, we started. One of the rules that I learned was clearly applicable from my first learning how to do still photography, which was that out of a 36-shot roll, if you got one that was good, you're gold.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was with Steadicam at first.
I just need one take that works, or one shot that works.
Yeah. So we were comfortable, since we were in control ourselves, of trying something over and over and over again and failing almost always, and then oh my God!
And so let me ask you a question, because I felt this, but I was taught how to do it, right? So it's a little different. Was it this kind of thing where you're flailing and you're flailing and you're flailing, and then in a moment it's sort of like, oh, I get it now. And
no, I didn't get it. It just worked, and I didn't know why.
You didn't know, but that's what I'm saying. But you sort of feel like, oh, it's working, and then you lose it, and you got to find it again.
Well, yeah. Also, it was mostly about not falling.
Yeah. Well,
there's so many things with the balance of the Steadicam, but none of it was instructed to me, and none of it I figured out intellectually really at all either. So
you were just trying stuff essentially.
I want to make that what I saw on Bound for Glory, and do these cool things, shots that I had always wanted to do handheld, but I was limited because I had to take a step and it ruined the shot. Yeah. So suddenly now I can, let me try this, let me try that. So exploring ideas with it, and most of them totally failed. Yep. And one out of 36 takes or tries or shots, we said, you know what, we better do this in a tripod. You know what, let's just do the handheld thing. Yeah, okay. But every once in a while there was gold, and it kept us like both so thrilled and so excited.
Well, I don't play golf, but people say that's like golf. Golf is mostly about failing, but every once in a while you connect.
That's
and
life.
It's so great,
right?
Yeah, it is life.
I mean,
it's exactly right.
Why do I blank on names all the time? But it's become a real common expression now that our great Canadian writer Malcolm Gladwell, who had said that it takes 10 years or 10,000 hours to
something like that, yeah, to master something,
some
or whatever.
particular thing. Yeah. And that's certainly true with Steadicam.
But I
as
think
well.
there's something interesting in what you said with that. And granted, you were doing your own thing, and so you had the luxury of nobody looking over your shoulders or whatever.
Absolutely.
But I think there's something about operating that the great stuff comes when you're pushing it and you're not completely certain. You're pushing to the point that you're not completely certain you're going to succeed. You're taking the chances. And sometimes you do fail, but when you don't fail is when the good stuff really happens, right?
I think absolutely. If you aren't always at the point of worrying about total failure, then you are not investing your whole being into it.
You're not pushing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
ideas. So in any case, I flailed around for a year or two. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
But
a while.
Yeah. So I, without understanding maybe exactly why I was getting better, I was getting better. And always then, like, this is like I am serving it, and I don't want to betray it, and I want to make everyone share my joy in it.
You want to do it justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to betray it.
Yeah.
And so it really was a mission almost.
Well, so how many Steadicam operators do you think there were at that time? 8, 10? I mean,
I didn't know of any others.
Yeah, but in retrospect, there were probably a handful, essentially.
4,
at that
maybe.
point. Yeah. So there must have been a big, I don't know if it's the right word, but almost weight of, I don't want to screw up because then this thing doesn't work. Like,
That's
I
for
don't-
sure what I felt.
Yeah,
burning in a burning way.
Yeah, you feel like a debt to
Oh,
make
this
it work.
is the fucking unbelievable way I can finally realize my dreams
Yeah. And I
of
don't-
how a shot could work. And I don't want anybody to like say, oh, no, we don't want that.
But like you said, when you showed up on set, everybody scattered because nobody wants
Yes.
part of it.
Later.
So you're like, you have to figure it out.
That was later. But
Yeah.
the pivotal moment was a mutual friend of Garrett's, who I didn't know about still, but I worked and I shot films for him and using the Steadicam in all kinds of crazy ways. But I was then working freelance for CBS station O&O that was in Philadelphia. And he and I came up with a scheme that I should try to use the Steadicam on their live coverage of the Mummers Parade, which is an annual.
Yeah.
And it was like, duh, they should have that. Yeah. So he acted as my producer. I don't know how we convinced whoever. Well, I was a golden child. It was amazing. I mentioned being lucky and being given gifts, like my whole camera package was financed by Edie Huggins because I worked with her in the field and doing these little, as a freelance outside guy, come in and we would do stories and I don't know why it was, but she knew that I was trying to get my own gear, and
She was a newscaster, right? She was
Yes.
She was a news
reporter,
yes.
anchor
Yeah.
at times, and a beautiful soul. And she just said, "Well, I'll give you a loan with no terms, no nothing." And
Well, she believed in you, obviously.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you need that from someplace.
Yeah.
So, so I had my gear, but I had to use a video camera. Is that what they call it back then?
Back then.
And Damon Sinclair, he was my producer, and he and I were in contact with, I forget what walkie-talkie system and headsets and shit, but he was standing behind the director and watching and there to say, Larry's ready. What we discovered is that I would have to do a shot to entice. And Damon would say to the director, "Hey, look at Larry's shot, look at Larry's shot." And I had been thinking ahead, once I finish this shot and they take me, if they do, what will I do then? Because the shot would be over. So it would always be compound move, and then they would take me and I would do another shot. And then,
Because this was all live, right?
oh yeah, this
So
is
they're
live.
coming
And with a
back
big
Huge
fucking cable.
Yep.
And it was a monster to do.
Yeah.
But apparently Garrett was watching the Mummers Parade
Just at home, you mean?
at home, and I was like,
They're using my stuff.
what's happening? There's somebody who's making it work.
That's
Now,
great.
I'm sure this is half bullshit,
all right.
but basically Damon then said, yeah, that's Larry, you know. And we got a hold of each other. I mean, he called me. I don't remember.
Oh, so you know Garrett Brown.
Yeah, I do now. And he said, hey, listen, why don't you come over to my house with the Steadicam and maybe I can help you out, probably help you learn some things.
Yeah.
And sure. And I think that really was the first workshop.
That's amazing.
One-on-one. And a couple of things that I have depended on so completely that Garrett's still sort of like, really? It was in his townhouse. Have you visited that?
No,
it's
went
small.
Okay.
Compared to the country
the farm. Yeah.
So little stairs, little banisters.
Wait a minute, is this the townhouse that has at the top of the stairs that cut around a corner, there's a gouge taken out of the wall right where the Steadicam arm is?
I didn't do that.
I'm not say you did that. I'm not pointing the finger at you accusing me. But I've heard that right around where that turn is, there's some wall taken
there may
out
well be
by people having hit it so
after
many
me.
times.
I never touched anything because he said, Larry, if you scratch the wall, you're dead. Okay? If you hit that chandelier, we're both dead.
Yeah.
And so I was very conscious of like avoiding obstacles and things and trying to do a shot that we had orchestrated.
Yeah.
And thank goodness by then he had a video transmitter receiver and a recorder so I could do stuff and then we'd go back and play it back and watch
untethered
it.
or whatever, yeah.
And he was getting nervous about like me hitting things.
Destroying
He said,
stuff?
you know what? Let's turn off the monitor. Why don't you go through the shot without the monitor? Oh my God. That is probably the single most significant, important piece of learning that has ever happened to me. It's a little bit like the piano. You lift off here and you'll end up there.
Yep.
If you're not distracted by the damn monitor and the frame, you can navigate through space with the Steadicam so much more reliably, better, smoother, beautifully. Not only that, when we did that, much safer, not getting any near, because I was able to watch and I could see where I wanted the camera to move through space. We played it back. The framing was so much better. Headroom was fucking awesome. Everything that you look at that we normally react to and respond to and correct, all that was gone. It was just a shot.
Huge learning curve. That's amazing.
So when I'm instructing, one of the earlier things I do, okay, now let's turn the monitor off. You don't need that.
Really?
Totally. That's great. That now I have to be careful because I've obviously gone through a learning curve in 40, 50 years of this that others starting out don't have access to. Just like you learn a bicycle, but you don't know how you learned it, whatever. But what I teach now, when I'm teaching, is figure out what the story is. Figure out how you want to show it.
Yeah.
Figure out as a result where the camera wants to be with a finder.
Yeah.
Fuck the Steadicam. That's such a big motherfucking distraction.
Terrible finder. Yeah.
No, never allow anyone to push you into showing what you can do with it. No.
Yeah.
You show me what you're thinking you want.
Yep.
And when they don't supply an idea, say, well, what about this?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I build what I call series of dots, points of space with frames that have significance that might, who knows, there's a million.
It's the same with setting up a crane shot, right? You talk to people about connecting
Yes, there you
pieces
go.
and connecting the
there
dots.
you go.
It's
Exactly
the
right.
same. Yeah.
So the problem with Steadicam is you can do almost anything.
Yes.
And the art and the craft is to eliminate all but one thing.
That's good.
And and we can go a little bit deeper into this, but basically find the dots, mark them with goddamn tape and tape measure if you need for height. Or what I do usually is if I'm carrying a Steadicam, I do this. And I hit myself with my yoke hand, not having it in my hands, but as if I did. And that tells me that's physically where I want my hand to be to get the lens where I want it to be.
Oh, I see. So it's muscle memory of where you want to get to.
Yes. So your job
interesting.
is to then connect those dots in the simplest, purest,
and repeat them.
Perfect way.
Yeah.
Yes, unless it's you made a mistake and it really shouldn't be there. Should be lower or higher? Then change that from take to take. But you have a plan.
Yeah.
So I try to figure out where that thread started and where it should be going. I have a lot of ideas about that. But
no, this is all great. So wait, I want to ask you one question.
Yes.
So when
you said one question, you get one question.
This is it. So when you're doing big shots like. Again, this movie GoodFellas that I'm not quite certain about, Raising Cain or those big shots.
Yes.
Do you turn the monitor off then so it's a better shot?
in a way, sometimes mental. Okay. So what happens is always use some version of a finder to gain mutual collaborative agreement about what matters in the shot. And for me, normally, I don't want the connective tissue to be part of the discussion. So what do we want to see here?
What are the frames?
And then you want tight here, or if I want leeway to have my own interpretation because I want to be able to respond without restrictions,
You don't ask.
then I don't ask. So I find the things that everybody agrees on are really important.
Yeah.
And then I take over and I figure out how to make it
And then they think it was their idea, and that's
what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
It was their idea, my idea. If it's not a shared idea, it won't work. So I can't go off on my own half-cocked because that will betray the confidence that they have in me because what are you doing?
Yeah.
Which we could talk about GoodFellas and where I thought, oh my God, I did it. I fucked up. I
Oh, really?
broke the trust.
All right, I'll ask you about that.
Okay. In any case, I came away from Garrett's little workshop where he then, this works. I can teach people, but they have to be taught.
You were the first student.
I don't know if I was, but I think I was.
Well,
At least a way for him to construct the notion of you have to have teaching to get people to do this.
Yeah.
There were some other operators who were already like in the big film business, like Ted Churchill and his brother Jack, twin brother Jack. And there was, oh God, I'm going to forget names, but there was like four, as you mentioned.
Hector Figueroa out in Los Angeles, who was on Bound for Glory, actually. And said,
wow, that's
I want
cool.
to do that.
Didn't know that.
I've got a great picture I can show you of him and Tony Rivetti on this movie, The Car.
Yeah.
And Hector, Tony said Hector put it on day 1 and took it off on day 32. Like they just kept it on and make it.
Right.
And he was like you. He was like, I don't know how to do it. I'll just figure it out and whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Garrett kind of assumed that, it would be easy for anybody to learn how to ride a bike. Nobody teaches you how to ride a bike, right? Yeah. But they should.
Yeah.
Like I say, turn the handlebars the opposite direction you want to go and then recover.
Yeah.
And so many people say, no, I don't. Yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. So once you understand how that happens, you get so much better at it, which is the thing I'm talking about. Keep in mind the physics of it and the mechanics of it, and then somehow make that disappear into a pure thought.
Okay.
But you can't get there without all the mechanics being perfect. And if you don't, it'll be flawed all the time in some way, and you don't understand why.
Yeah.
So you have to break it down in so many ways.
In the 1980s, and maybe 90s, I guess, as well, you were sort of like the big shot Steadicam guy for a long period of time.
I don't remember that, but okay.
I remember it well because Charles Pappard and I used to watch over and over and over your shows.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You kidding me?
Cool.
We would dissect them all over the place. As a matter of fact, we just 2 months ago went to the Academy Theater in Los Angeles at the new museum, which is an amazing theater. The museum's okay, but the theater's incredible.
Cool.
And because they were showing GoodFellas, and we saw a print of GoodFellas.
Yeah.
And it was so, just the whole movie's great.
Yes.
But it was so exciting to see that shot on the screen, the big screen. But did you sort of luck into becoming that guy? Like, how did that happen?
That's a good question. Who can answer that? I was in Philadelphia, and I was just doing local
Like
stuff.
corporate stuff or whatever would hire you? Or?
A little bit corporate, but only through good friends who we didn't do their shit. We did the stuff they rewarded us to allow us the freedom to do other than the corporate part.
Like this Bell guy and whatever, yeah.
Yeah, well, a mixture of things as a camera operator, DP. Yes, there was some corporate in there. But that was all to support the habit. You know, the cocaine, heroin experience of doing Steadicam.
Yep.
So after Temple, and this is what I talk about is who you know, those three friends of mine who all spread out in different areas of the business. That we call it the business.
The business.
And unfortunately, it is a business, and you have to somehow deal with that.
Yeah.
But I had to support my habit working for them by making money somehow. So the guy who ran the film lab at Temple was married to a woman who knew people or worked also at the Channel 6 then ABC affiliate news station, and told the head of the editing department that I was somebody they should maybe, talk to about.
Kid with the new toy. Yeah, yeah.
Didn't have the toy then at all.
Okay. Oh, you
no.
just. Oh, this is before that. Gotcha.
Oh, way before
Yeah,
it.
okay.
So that was entree, and I forget the exam was like, oh, here's some footage. Let me see you put together a little story with a hot splicer and rewinds and the viewer.
Steenbeck and all that stuff.
No Steenbeck.
No Steenbeck.
No. What are you talking about?
It's just a straight up viewer.
Yeah, and you have to turn it at the. I think we did have motors at one point that would run it at 24 frames, so it you could hear the
you
sound.
had to approximate it with the turning.
Yeah, occasionally we use the motorized block if we had one, or otherwise we do it by hand. Anyway,
okay.
So I did it because I knew how to do that, and he said, "Okay, you're hired." And initially as an editor, and I would do news, and I was freelance. So when they needed somebody extra, I would go in and made some money. Long story, but I met my second wife, who ended up working across the street at CBS station, and she introduced me to them, and I started doing the same thing for them.
Okay.
And that was where Eric Ober, he for a while he was the president of CBS News, but back then he was he ran the station locally at Philadelphia, and he took a shine to me, maybe because he liked my wife so much. Well,
Whatever.
not my wife yet then, but
Yeah.
any case, essentially, anytime I needed work, I would call up and say, so listen, do you need anybody? Yeah, you want to come in? Yeah. So I'd come in and be hired for the day as an editor or a cameraman.
Yep.
And eventually it would be like, yeah, I don't have anything coming for a while. And so Eric would say, okay, let's make up a special report you could do. And I had my own gear too, so I could go out with, usually, I just realized what an asshole I've been at times, with the anchors who are fucking seriously important, and if a breaking story happens, they have to be there.
Yeah.
And I say, well, if I'm going to go off and do this, and it would be a piece, like a longer piece than normal, a special feature.
Yeah.
I said, when I go out, you can't call them.
I don't care what
They're
happens.
mine.
You can't have them.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would operate out of my own house when I was editing and everything. And they come over and do. So I total control.
Wow. Good for you.
But Eric loved me.
Hey, if you can do it and you can pull it off. Why
So
not?
this is pretty important. This is the balancing act you have to do. It's a business.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to satisfy the people who need to make the money from your labors.
Sure.
But you will get nowhere if you aren't in charge too, somehow. And my big goal, to take it away from a personal feeling, ego, is I have to protect the integrity of a Steadicam eventually. Mm-hmm. So I have to do everything I can to make it work the best it can. So no, we shouldn't do that because I'm not good at it. Garrett taught us. Steadicam doesn't do that. Oh, really? So you could get out of something you knew you would fuck up.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually I'll be that good, but I can't do
But
that.
head it off at the pass so you don't end up looking bad. Or
Yes,
it
and
doesn't
figure
end up
out
looking
some
bad.
way that it would show off what it does well and avoid the disasters, but tread almost to them, get close to breaking.
Yep.
But have a plan to bail out of that and make it
Sure.
safer if you need to. But keep trying.
Which is actually great for any operator, because as you're coming up, you don't do everything well just yet. So
No.
I can't do that. So you know what? A better idea. This would be more organic. I think this would tell the story.
You're bullshitting
better.
me now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you're a car salesman, right? I mean, that's what we all are.
Yes.
Yeah. Really, we could
but
go
realistically,
down the big stairs, or I could wait for them to come to me.
Yes, but I mean, really what it is ultimately is serving everybody's greater good. You maybe don't want to make it appear that you're faulty or inadequate, but what you're really doing is saying, me, the tool, works well this way as a hammer, but not as a screwdriver.
Let's take advantage of that. Yeah.
So here with the people we have and the equipment we have, and guide them to an idea that you can handle.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a responsibility you have to them. But for me, it was protecting the reputation of
You didn't want it to get a
Steadicam.
bad reputation. Yeah.
Wasn't me, it was the art of that I was
Sure.
trying to protect.
Sure.
I have one really important thing that we need to get to, which is what I've been
Go for
hinting
it.
at all
Yeah,
the way
okay.
about the mechanics of doing things, understanding how they are.
Yeah.
The Steadicam has incredible strength and amazing weaknesses. So the biggest one until recently has always weakness. This will be loss of horizon.
Yeah.
So it just by the nature of how it works, it's all not electronic until recently.
Yeah.
It's all just basic physics
So, physics and operator input. Yeah.
and figuring out what the least injurious way to set it up that gives you the most bang for the buck and screws you less.
Yes. It screws you less.
So what is clear is generally you want somewhat bottom heavy. We all operate at some various levels of bottom heaviness.
So more weight on the bottom of the rig.
And it tends to hang from that 3-axis gimbal if you don't move perfectly.
Yeah.
Absolute perfect.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to move, that all falls apart.
Yeah.
This is the key to how I ended up constructing shots that, to me, ultimately allowed me to give a chauffeur-driven ride to my audience.
Yeah.
So I knew that every time I changed speed or direction, any acceleration would cause a problem.
Yeah. Sort of
And the only way-
penduluming or something like that.
Yes. So if I was to
Yeah.
push forward,
Yep.
basically with my hand on the yoke to make the camera go forward, the Steadicam itself being bottom heavy, the bottom would lag behind.
And so it would tilt down, essentially, unless you counteract it. Yeah.
Yes, counteract is okay. I was saying but it's anticipatory counteraction.
Yeah. But not
So-
too anticipatory. So,
No, so you got two ways to deal with it. One, you just grab the fucker and you just force it to stay upright, which results in a handheldish bullshit thing.
yep.
Or you learn, especially from trying and from bitter experience, but also for me, little tune-ups before a shot, moving it around, just how much pressure to use with the other hand below the gimbal that matches the force you're doing below the center of gravity.
Yep.
That counteracts, as you say, the force on the gimbal, which is above the center of gravity.
Yep.
Ideally, they both push together with the same force and the same time. There are other things that mask all that beautiful simplicity because moving your body tends to make it move around too. So this is like awkward. Oh my God, what's causing it to move? Well, all of it. But you learn, especially with careful, deliberate exercise, just how much force to apply, when to start it, what kind of acceleration it should have, and when to stop it and let it go. So all my shots I began to construct out of very careful changes in speed and direction, never arbitrary. So I would have to construct a shot that allowed me to say, we're going straight at one speed in one direction and we're not going to change that. That's God. And then there's a corner coming up. Okay, so let's plan ahead. Let's figure out, how do I know when to start it, when to stop it with both hands, with everything, and make a very careful, deliberate change in speed or direction, and then stop it, and then let it alone. God is working again. So there are no arbitrary or reactive moves at all, because if you do, it'll fuck up.
Yeah.
So everything has to be planned, coordinated. So we talked about dots, essentially constructing a shot that consists of, I need to be here now, I need to be over there. After that, the phrase on the piano, we leave from this point and we go to that
Land
point.
there, yep.
It's all predestined. It's all pre-planned. And then to be able for that to happen, I may have to require the actors to change the trajectory of their move or give me an excuse to do that change that helps tell the story. So yeah, that's when, for the sake of Steadicam gods, I have to take over and direct all these little things.
So let me ask you a question about that, because you've worked with a couple of big actors here and there. And there are the times, especially as a Steadicam operator, because you're a little bit of a one-man band out there, you need to ask something of them. You need to, hey, when you take this corner, can you take it wide? Can you give me a moment here so I can get through here? Whatever.
Yes.
How do you how do you sort of figure out who you can approach and how to approach them? Because they're all different, right? Have you learned something over the years?
Yeah, and it's all different. It depends on the actor, and it depends on. Once I started doing some of these shots and gained enough of a reputation that the actor coming in would say, "Oh, hi, Larry."
Yeah. Maybe they're already predisposed to go.
Yeah.
I want to dance with you.
Yes, and some actors who or have reputations for being difficult, I had the greatest time with. They were like, "I'll do anything for
Jared
you."
told me a great story about you with Jack Nicholson walking through a space and you sort of calling him out publicly for not moving out of the way or something like that.
Oh, there have been a number of actors and a number of stories. Jack was the hardest nut to crack in a way because he wanted to prove that I couldn't handle him. And so when I asked him to do specific stuff, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
And it was only, and I don't know if this is what Garrett did, but at one point in the middle of Hoffa, and I really needed his cooperation in a particular challenging long shot that that Danny DeVito wanted me to do. I said, a light, suddenly a little bell or something. Hey, Jack, what? I don't know how to do this. What? Well, you're going over here, and I would love to come around to see profile, and then, but I'm afraid of hitting this wall here. What if I do a little banana? Oh, that's great. Really? And then total cooperation, no matter what I ask, he would do it absolutely. After that,
really,
he had established his dominance.
Yes,
and I had acceded to
and
him.
That's what you wanted him to do, I'm assuming, anyway. But you had to get to that point.
I had to get that point. So in some cases,
sometimes, yeah.
Other times, I have to be careful because I don't want somebody to. Peter Falk on a movie once, he had to pass the camera by in a little hallway, and coming down one set of stairs, a small reprieve, and then back up another set of stairs. And at that point, I wanted to turn around and then following up the other side. Yeah. And if he just did his straight thing, it was going to be like big, ugly close up. Yeah. So, Peter, listen, would you mind, as you're coming down, could you just slightly banana, maybe that's it, as I'm coming around? So, what? Well, in other words, like this, and I walk and I do a little arc and okay, let's try it, shall we? Okay, and he came down. I stopped, turned, did a little arc, stopped, turned, and went back up.
Totally unnatural.
Said, okay, we don't need that, Peter. Thank you. I had to figure out some other thing.
Yeah.
It's different. Every actor is different. And every actor has to feel they are in control of what they're doing because that's their job.
Yeah.
So if you ask them to do something that takes them out of character or they don't get a reason for doing it, they will, if they're a great actor, refuse.
Yeah.
If they're a poor actor, they may try and it'll look horrible. Yeah. Somehow you want to make it understand that make them understand that you understand that they have a responsibility to their role and their character and their needs.
That's the first and foremost, and that you're hoping that you can fit your needs into
because
that.
I'm the audience.
Yeah.
And you don't want to upset the audience. I'm the audience.
Absolutely.
So often then I would construct, maybe even before they came out, because I could already see this is going to be an issue, and I move a chair or ask for an extra to cross or do something so that they can respond to it. Did you use that word organically?
Yes.
That's
a big BS word we use all the time.
Only if it didn't interfere with the storyline.
Sure.
So it had to be, I had to understand the director's intent, the writer's intent, the actor's intent, and try to be the vessel for all that. But I had to fuck with it because I will betray what the Steadicam can't do.
Yeah. But so basically you're saying you're bringing something physical into that world that then they're going to have to interact with, what that will then cause them to do what you need to do naturally, physically, to go where you need to go.
Yeah, especially if you're doing the longer shots. So the longer shots, normally, okay, they walk down the stairs, cut, close up on their face, cut. And you can do each element separately. But if you're connecting a long shot like the GoodFellas shot, then you have to figure out how to fill the space with something that has meaning rather than my dreaded term, shoe leather.
Yeah, we just keep walking because we're walking, and it gets boring.
And we're walking, and we're walking, and
Why are
nothing's
we
happening,
walking?
and then terrorized by the notion that in some of these longer shots, somebody would get impatient and use scissors. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Now, part of it was just to explore that possibility that a shot keeps going because it isn't done.
Yeah.
Or if it is done, it's done pretty awkwardly in retrospect, like Hitchcock and other greats, Orson Welles things,
Absolutely.
but they're clearly limited by cranes and tracks and shit, and it's a little awkward, and there's a little bit of like waiting for it to happen. So the Steadicam is a much easier way. On the other hand, as I said, I want every shot to have every change in speed or direction to have a motivation to start it, to stop it, to change it, and everything should be justified and everything. So, in the case of GoodFellas, wow, I had already done something with Marty, a few things, so they just called me in, and pretty much because it's this new thing, as you say, when I first would walk on sets.
Was it still new back then? I mean,
it
people still okay? I sort of lose track of what.
Me too.
where
Of
things were
everything
at
in my
that point.
life.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did something. Oh, so the breakthrough, and you're saying, how do you get in the business and everything? So I'm in Philadelphia, and I'm doing these little independent projects, which is great because we can take 36 takes to finally get one that works.
Which is like every show.
But
Not quite.
you're expected right out of the gate, and it's okay. And let's move on if it's TV rather than streaming or rather than or commercials or so. A friend of mine who also was in Philadelphia. Can't remember if he did Steadicam. I don't think so. And if I was doing it back then, it wasn't much. It was the very beginning. But he had a gig in New York, and he woke me up at like 3 a.m. Hey, Larry, listen, I got a problem. What is it? Well, I got this job that I've been doing in New York, but I can't make it, and they need somebody. When? Well, you'd have to get the 4:30 train out of Penn Station to get to EOE Screen Gems, which was a lot of commercials done, and they were all pedestal video cameras.
Okay.
Totally, I don't know anything about that shit.
Yeah.
But I said, oh man, I don't really think I can, and I hung up. And then, wait a minute, New York City? Wait a minute. I might meet people. So, hey, listen, do you still need somebody? Yeah. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Got in the train. Anyway, that became a semi-regular gig, and people will come into EOE Screen Gems to do this weird form of commercial making, but they also had outside interests as well, commercials and videos and films and everything else. So I met a bunch of people there who respected what I was developing, because I was already changing. Okay, to do a zoom and have it stop, I'll put a little dental floss, is my favorite, and tie that off on the zoom so it'll feather itself to a perfect frame.
On the pedestal camera.
Yeah.
So you're basically, again,
I'm already
going, I'm going to make this do what I want it to do and not what it does. Yeah.
I'm going to try to get around the problems that show up when I try to use this gear. And I'll either change myself or change the gear.
Yeah.
So, especially for Steadicam operators, nothing fucking works out of the box. Nothing.
It's not that way anymore, but it definitely was that way back then.
It's still that way, but more subtle.
Yeah, that's true.
There's nothing that works out of the box perfectly.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out, is it me or is it it? Well, it's both. So you either adapt to its limitations and avoid them, or you try to figure out a way to fix it. But never assume that a piece of gear that you buy works. It doesn't. Everything comes flawed. And your challenge is to figure out how it's flawed and how to overcome that, how to modify it. Now, well, I have a whole huge shop now but nothing is sacrosanct. And you really, when I bought my first Steadicam, finally, after renting from Camera Mart, and then a local Philadelphia rental house for a little while, Oscar Hurt, they had a Steadicam. But nobody was renting it because nobody knew how to use it. And if they did use it, it fucked their full production up, and so it sat there. Yeah. So they would make deals with me, no problem. I would take it with me on a documentary for a few weeks, and I would pay them a few days rental if I used it.
This is better than nothing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And finally, there was a friend who, Bob Berkey, who had bought one. Wow. And Model 1. Mm-hmm. And so I started renting from him. And then it ended up just living with me. And once in a while, if he got a job, he would
Yeah.
get it back for me.
Yep.
And then he said, you know what? I'm going to get the new one. So I'll sell you this one if you want. Well, I don't have any money. Well, that's okay. Just pay me as you can. Fucking hey. How do you survive this business without people helping you?
Absolutely.
So as soon as I owned it, I took it to my good friend Don Widows, who had a machine shop, and we put it in the bandsaw before I ever used it and cut that fucking piece of shit off. Because the battery, if you remember the Model 1, would stick out and get in your way.
Yep,
well, yeah, but it would be in your way. How do you? So I immediately wanted to cut that sucker off. And also later the monitor was a problem. I cut that off. But, now we have to fix it, and made it vertical.
Yep.
And made it adjust in various ways.
Side to side. Yep.
Right. So did that before I even...
That's great. I love the fact that you finally get the piece of equipment.
I'm not going to touch it as an operator until I bury myself by ripping it in half.
And then you can't turn back.
No. So now we have to figure out a way to make that work.
That's great.
Right. But that was my attitude right from the beginning. But then I used to make radio control model airplanes. So, I mean,
You're used to tinkering.
Yes.
Yeah.
With electronics, with physical things, hinges, and
I want to bring you back to the GoodFellas shot because you were
GoodFellas. Did I do that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Well, let me ask you. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt because I've been thinking about asking you.
Help me.
When you're doing these big,
help me help you.
When you're doing these big shots and you're starting to put them together, are you both thinking about this is how I'm going to make this turn, and this is what I'm going to do here, and this, and all the things you have to do, and then you're also pre-thinking, where am I going to get into trouble, so you can try to get ahead of the problems that you first see?
Those are all the same.
Yeah.
So Marty, the first job I did with him was the last shot in what was that? After Hours.
After Hours. Oh, I know that. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I had nothing to do with the film until it was finished. And he always built in a schedule of editing and and then saying, oh, you know what? We need. Oh. And they would book the actors and everything ahead of time.
Reshoot
for the reshoot. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So they were at the very end of their reshoots. And the last thing they wanted to do was play with this Steadicam thing. It might be fun for the credit sequence at the end and finish the good morning Paul on a computer screen, if you remember that. So essentially what he said was a set scene, actor does this, sits down, does that. Once he hits that keyboard, just have fun. And Michael Bauhaus had lit it so that papering all the windows and doors with glow behind and ceiling fixtures, no restrictions whatsoever. No rules, no help, no nothing. Wow. Just have fun.
Had he ever worked with Steadicam before?
I don't think so.
This is really an inaugural thing. So it was
You'd
really
have to ask him. I don't think so.
But essentially, it sounds like it was show me what it can do.
Yeah. Show me what you and it or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So he had his parents with him. He rarely could bring them to his sets because there was a lot of distasteful shit going on. But this wasn't going to be that.
But this was clean. This was in the office. Yeah.
So I had Larry Houston, my assistant, and I by then had some experience shooting with the Steadicam. Yeah. It was like, I'd done maybe 2 films or something in New York because of my connections that ended up anyway. Yep. So I was a known entity in terms of, I'm sure he'd seen shots I'd done. Let's get that guy. I don't know who said it. Michael,
and there weren't that many
him?
people anyway.
No.
So
Again, it was like a half a dozen in the country, maybe.
Sure.
I still at that point, I think, because it didn't work.
Yeah.
Shit. And if you did try to do it, you bury your career by fucking up with it.
Well, as you're saying, there were a lot of bad people too.
Yeah.
Not their fault. There weren't classes yet.
It's impossible to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you just rent it.
And just, try to figure it out.
Right, which we all did at the beginning. So I don't know those facts and figures really. You'll have to, I don't remember anything.
I think you're ballpark. So
So anyway, he said, so here it is. And tell you what, I've got a piece of music I'm planning to use. We'll have it on the speakers for you to hear.
Okay.
And then we'll go around the corner because it's video transfer to the receiver. Yeah. And he would sit there with Michael and with the producer and with his parents.
His parents.
And they were watching. And so... and action, boom, da 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 da, and the music played, and I just started dancing with like, and the AD was like, we have extras if you need anybody. Oh yeah, that might be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe somebody could cross here, and so sort of build up a kind of a plan for a flow.
Yeah, sure.
But really, I was terrified when I went in there because
Martin Scorsese.
and wondering
his parents.
how do I act to fit into this world, which I don't really know about.
Yeah.
What do I do? But then he presented me with this just playground. So, I'm back in school making
That's great.
one shot out of 36 that works.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it.
Yep.
Have a good time.
Yeah.
And I would do something and I would hear
Really?
from the other room through the walls.
That's great.
To the point where I remember getting ready for one shot. Just before going, I spun the Steadicam up in a big vertical arc and then caught it.
Yep.
Yay! It's just like, it's party time.
Like stupid Steadicam tricks.
Man, I am
great.
not at all intimidated in the
that's
very
great.
least.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And that kind of set the tone where Marty would give me a situation and then
You make it better.
figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with
Goodfellas.
And it was I got several shots in that film. Normally that were not much advance notice. Like, it usually be Bauhaus will call me and say, listen, we need you down here. Are you available? Can you? Yeah. So we walked in late afternoon, as I remember it, outside the club, no extras or anything yet, just the two actors, Ray and Lorraine, and Marty and the AD and Michael Bauhaus. And he basically said, okay, I want to start close up on this dollar bill, or what was it, 20 or something?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
He's handing it to the valet or something.
So I'm going to
like
start
right?
tight on that.
Yeah.
And then as they walk away, we reveal the club.
The club, yeah.
And there'll be a lot of extras in a line, so you'll have to thread your way through.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. And the two of them, dollar bill, and then two of them walked away, and we followed. And they went downstairs, and they turned a corner, and we're walking the hallway. Then Michael said, no, Marty, we have to go in the kitchen. I said, what are you talking about? The club is right there. Why would they go in the kitchen?
So originally they just made the left and went into the kitchen.
There's no left. They just went straight into the club.
Straight into the club, yeah.
The kitchen was off to the left.
That's what it was. The kitchen is off and then they come back around. That's right, yeah.
So why? And he said, because of the fluorescence. It's different fluorescence from the whole. It's a color change. It's beautiful. We have to do that. Okay, whatever.
So he was seeing a missed opportunity, essentially, Bauhaus.
He was insisting on not missing the opportunity.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah.
So he had planned this ahead, and he knew what he wanted.
Gotcha.
So now we're following them there. Yeah. And we're walking around, and we're walking, and we're following, and we're walking, and they come back out the same damn door they went in.
Yeah.
And then turned the corner and went into the club.
Yep.
Then there was actual staged action.
Yeah.
The table coming out of nowhere and sitting down, and well rehearsed, as you saw. Extraordinary the way they got the table set, and that was
great.
amazing. Yeah. But then there was some dialogue, scripted.
There was a lot of dialogue. That shot goes on for a long, long time.
That's true.
The thing is, you walk for a while and you do some really impressive physical stuff, and then you're still and very controlled for a long time.
That's true. Well, actually, there were some changes in changing sizes, burying in the pan, burying a move to get closer and closer and all that. Plus, this is a BL, Michael's camera, so it's heavy on the left. Is it left in the beginning and then goes to the right, or vice versa?
I think it's right to left. We just talked about this the other day, but the film would be on one side of the mag, and as it went through the no, it is left to right. It would. So basically, you're fighting that as the shot goes on.
I had them run a roll through halfway, stop, and I balanced the Steadicam for that.
Yep.
Then they would take it back out, and
so you fight a little bit at the beginning. You fight a little bit at the end.
There's like a 15-second breakaway. I don't have to fight it, in addition to everything else I'm trying to do.
That's amazing.
So I'm like thinking as we're following them, and nothing's happening, and there's no reason for anything.
As they're going down the stairs, you mean, and going around the
corner and going in the kitchen and coming back out until we got to the club. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
why are we doing this?
This is the worst case of shoe leather I've ever seen in my life. This is going to be a disaster for Steadicam, and they're going to cut the shit out of it. And the whole intent clearly is to go from that dollar bill or 20 or whatever it is, access through the club.
Yep.
So, and Marty says, okay. I said, and Ray says, hey, listen, you want me to stay with you, help work it out? Yeah.
Ray Liotta. Yeah.
Yeah. And Lorraine says, do you need me? And Ray and I look at each other. No, because if there's anything about it, it's just she's like a little puppy dog is the way I put it.
She's just following along to this guy who this is his entire world,
Yes.
right? So a lot of that came from him then, helping.
Oh God, everything. So again, with what we've talked about.
So and let me ask you a question though. Do you think that he recognized that it was shoe leather and he wanted to turn it into something
Well, I think he
more?
recognized panic in my eyes.
Okay, from you, I got you. Yeah.
I don't know how much experience he's ever had doing this, but he was the fucking ultimate, absolute, wonderful partner. And our first day, AD Joe Reedy was like, whatever you need.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, the extras are so much a part of that shot, and the crosses and everything.
Yes.
The guys in the kitchen and.
Yes, which none of that existed.
Yeah.
Well, so we started from the beginning. And the challenges were, as I saw it very clearly, that you want to edit, but without cutting.
Yeah.
So some of the challenges were very close, let them get away, see everything, go through the crowd. They start downstairs. If I'm too tight on them, we just see bald spots if there are any,
Yep.
looking straight down it. So I want to stay back a bit, but then they're going to go around a corner and disappear. And I'm like, I need some way for you to kind of stall
Yeah.
out a bit at the bottom of the stairs, something. Now, ultimately, it wasn't as a difficult proposition as I imagined it would be.
Yeah.
But and Joe was like, well, we can have a doorman
There's
there.
that big bodyguard doorman.
Yeah, so we can bring somebody in.
Just
I thought, that's great.
Slow him down a little.
And
bit.
Ray says, hey, you know what? Look, why don't I tip him too? I think that's what happened, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So cool.
But all these things slow him down so you can catch back up, but they work naturally.
Yes, so I mean, he provided, with Joe's help, something to do.
Yeah.
And he came up with the idea of tipping.
So wait, let me ask you a question on that, because it sounds like this is the way it happened. What I'll usually do in those situations is, instead of saying, not that I'd have the idea, but hey, what if there was a doorman here and you tipped him or whatever, just to say what my problem is. Like,
Yes.
look, when I'm coming down here,
Absolutely.
I need something to.
Exactly. That's as far as I went.
And
Ray
then they
filled
make
it in.
part of their act. Yeah.
Ray figured out what he, as his character, would think about doing, and Joe said, "Yeah, absolutely,
And it's
yeah,
so
you
natural.
can do that."
That's great. I mean, and he plays it so well too.
course.
Again, that he's done this 12,000
Right.
times with 12,000 other women, and it's just
Yeah.
what he does. Yeah.
I don't know about the thousands. I don't know. So then we start walking down the hall, and as I'm walking along, I say, "Okay, I'm getting bored. I'd really like to see your face again.
Yep.
We're following you, but I really want to see you more." And Lorraine doesn't have to react whatsoever to, but so, well, why don't I talk to somebody in the hall or something? And Joe says, "Yeah, we got anybody you want." Oh, okay. And essentially Ray worked out with the extra. There was a little thing like they're kissing, and he said,
Yeah.
"You too."
Always
I said,
you
"That's
too,
great."
always- yeah.
So he turns around to say that
Yeah.
for me.
Throws it right back to you.
Yeah. And then we go into the kitchen, and I'm deathly afraid, until maybe a year ago, deathly afraid that people will realize that we went into the kitchen and came back to the same door.
Nobody ever does. Nobody ever does.
No, but the realization, and I know why they didn't, because we worked really hard, especially with props and
Sure.
set dressing and everything. They changed the whole
Well,
doorway.
and the other thing is that even if you didn't, there's so much that occupies your mind there that by the time you get around that square and go back
Yeah,
out,
well,
where
there's even more to
you
it than
forgot.
that. When you take a 3D environment, you turn to 2D with film. If you try this experiment, if you want, you take a camera, you point it at something, and you start to pan 360. You'll get back to the start when you think you're only 3/4 of the way around.
Yeah. It's
Totally, it's like, what?
Yeah,
How did?
yeah.
So it's a huge distortion when we
Sure.
go 3D. So, and then they changed the set dressing so it looked different.
Yep.
And I said, okay, I need wipes here, and I want it real chaotic, and then
Yeah.
essentially went bit by bit, and I'm editing.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, something has to happen now. I've had a nice phrase
I've gotten
of
bored, so let's introduce something
that's the way I
else.
usually say
Yeah,
I'm bored.
Yeah,
Or so other things like in the kitchen, it was too tight to be
I
able
was
to
going to ask
actually
you about this.
follow them.
I mean,
and then pan with them as they turned a tight corner.
there's one corner that it almost
You can't.
I look at it every time and I go, how did he even get his body through there? Because I think
Yes.
he's sort of pushing Lorraine forward and kind of
Yeah.
scaling up.
Oh,
himself.
yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
So I had to get the Steadicam out in front of me. I said,
Yeah.
okay, so I need somebody that you talk to, and actually, other than the take that was in the film,
Yeah.
I had lines for the cook because I
Oh.
wanted Ray to actually talk.
To
And that-
slow him down a little bit, you mean? So you
No,
could catch
what I
back
wanted
up, or-
was that Ray says, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I'm still moving forward. I can't make the turn yet. They've already turned.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the chef.
Oh yes, because it does look at the chef. It loses them for a beat, and then
Yes,
it comes
and then I
back
come back
to him.
around
Yeah.
when I could.
Sure.
When the Steadicam was out in the because I couldn't
No, it just physically couldn't make the turn yet. Yeah.
absolutely. But even if I did, it would have been stupid because it just would have been too tight on him to
Yep.
keep him in the frame.
Yeah.
And why would I do that? So instead, yes. So we invented that. A little dialogue that Ray came up with him.
It's just about the environment, and then it comes back to him.
And then the final take, actually, I don't think it maybe exists for anybody else on screen, but during the take that ends up in the film,
Yeah.
I'm like waiting for him to give the line that he always did, and he doesn't. He just, oh fuck, and I come,
And then you just come, well, you don't notice it. So I don't notice it.
yeah, I know.
you
But for
do,
me,
I'm
I was
sure.
like, and then we follow through. The point is that everything I constructed to allow me to make the changes I had to make and to avoid boredom and to add interest and to flesh it out with Ray's help, building the character and telling the story. It wasn't many, many years after I thought, actually, probably what Marty was thinking, something he does, and even in shots we had done in that film elsewhere, he was thinking maybe voiceover. So you just follow him down the hall, and Ray would be saying, "So we used to do that, and I only took it."
Yeah. Which you wouldn't have needed all that because the voiceover would have sort of filled that in. Yeah.
I suspect.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just took over
Yeah.
and tried to make a shot that, for me, kept working without cuts and without any. I wasn't thinking.
But in the big part of it
voiceover.
is he clearly wanted you to take over. I mean,
It's just a pattern we had.
Yeah, that's what I
Here's
mean.
here,
Yeah.
kid, show us
Make it
something.
better.
Make
Yeah.
me laugh.
Yeah.
So I had no hesitation because of his confidence in
Yep.
me, and there wasn't anything like. It was just like, okay, you got it, okay.
Yeah.
Then we get into the club, and now it's very specific.
Yeah.
And that table flying in and sitting and all that stuff they do. But for me, I'm trying to work out this stuff with Ray, this labyrinthian walk, which to me is all important. But
first-
meanwhile, meanwhile, Michael is lighting that place, that
The club.
club area with lights everywhere. And back then, film, videotape, you didn't see lights in the frame. You didn't see mirrors. There are mirrors, there's flares, it's all over. So I kept running up to see, like, hey, Michael, can we flag that one
I'm
off?
going to see that. I'm going to see that. And then
Yeah.
you run back in and figure out the beginning of the
Yes,
shot.
and I come
run
back out. Oh shit! You added something. Can we do a flag for the mirror here?
Oh my gosh.
And because now the camera, and back to some of this aesthetic that I developed,
Yeah.
but I have to be exactly someplace in space with the camera pointed exactly somewhere to avoid all those what I won't see
Yeah.
on my monitor, but everybody will in the movie theater.
Absolutely.
So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then we've put this all together, and we are then rehearsing with Lorraine coming back after we've worked out all these things. Very important. Everybody in that shot, any long shots I've ever done,
Yeah.
I talk to everybody who appears in the frame individually.
Wow.
I say, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
When I come around the corner, I need to see you off to the side here. You can't look at me, but you need to be aware when I make this move. And when that happens, you need to do this.
So you include all the extras in
Every
yeah,
single one of
absolutely.
them,
Yep.
absolutely, because one mistake blows everybody's
But I
job.
also think that gives them ownership, right? As opposed
Totally.
to you're just a rack in the back.
No,
of the thing.
and
No,
that's the
it's-
problem. It's cookie cutter. If you can cut around, usually ADs don't give too many instructions. They wait and see what failed, and then they correct it a little bit here.
Yep.
I can't. It's got to be everything according to plan.
Yep.
So then I would say, okay, So that was a little fast. If you noticed, I was already past you by the time.
Yeah.
So let's try it again without the Steadicam,
Yeah.
with a finder.
Yeah, just
okay, here I come. That was better. Okay. And every single person that's in that shot, I had a one-on-one.
That's great.
And after every
So
rehearsal,
valuable. Yeah.
after every rehearsal, with or without Steadicam, I would come back in reverse order and say, that was great.
Great.
Fucking
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
Exactly.
but you looked at the lens. I did? Yeah, when? Right here. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
Never go forward with a long shot without every single element being practice rehearsed, and you absolutely trust that it's going to be perfect.
I love that though, because and the thing that I love about it is you've got this huge shot and you've got your big things, right? But at the end of the day, if that one extra looks in the camera, it's no.
I've
good.
got to walk through the whole goddamn shot again.
Exactly.
Now, there was no visual video magic
but
effects later to fix things,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
these days you could get away with.
But even so, I don't like to rely on that because it's like you,
Then
you try
it
to do
gets
it right.
clunky
You
and
try to do
doesn't
it right.
work.
But I'll just because for people who are listening, one of the things that I will also do, because I think that sometimes, extras aren't always actors. Let's put it that way. So I try to explain to them, as opposed to just going, I need you to go faster.
Yes.
I'll say, listen, here's the thing. You're hanging out here,
Yeah.
and then you realize that your girlfriend needed you to pick her up, and you
Right.
got to get the hell out of here
Right.
when I come around the corner. And they're
Right.
like, oh, okay. And they're
Yeah.
gonna run the way that they're. You know what I mean?
You're absolutely right. So depending on what extras you have, New York extras are fucking amazing.
Yeah.
They will do whatever, and they're desperate to
Yeah.
make it right.
Yeah.
So if it looks like they can motivate themselves, great. I will tell them physically what has to happen and rehearse it with them. And I'll say, that looked kind of like stupid. What were you thinking about? What do you mean? And I'll do just what you said. I said, well,
give them a reason.
let's figure out a story for you.
Yeah, whatever works. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they have ownership, as you said, of that moment,
Yeah.
of their role.
And I think also what that does in those bigger shots is it makes them all excited about. They're not just doing
Absolutely.
a cross. You're part of this massive thing.
Absolutely. They have a
And-
responsibility. And I'm going to see every part that you do.
Yep.
And I'm going to call you on it, and we're going to work it out. Okay, can you do something else then? But yes, so I personally direct every single
That's
extra.
great.
If they're in the shot, I have to totally depend on them and rely on them, and we have to interact with each other.
Now, if you're tweaking them at all, do you involve the second AD just so they know?
They're usually hovering, or the first AD, but
Yeah.
I don't let them do it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but if you do a change, do you let them know just so that they're
No,
aware of it? Or-
if they're following around,
Yeah,
they notice that
they're watching or whatever.
But
yeah,
no, I'm doing it.
yeah.
So they hang back. Even Joe, who is very respectful that way.
Yeah, but he obviously realizes how important that is for what you're doing because it's all it's a piece of the larger piece.
Well, Marty hired me, or Michael did, and so okay,
there must be some reason.
he can hang himself if he wants.
Yeah.
I'll do what I can to support.
Yeah.
And he was there offering, like I know just a couple. Okay, hey, get Joe and done.
Yeah, or you just go, hey, I need two people who sort of look like they're on a first date or something like that, and he's like,
I didn't even say that.
Yeah,
It started out with like, you need to interact with somebody.
Yeah.
And I want a way that requires you to turn around so I see your face some before we go around
Yeah.
that corner. And well, what about, and Joe maybe came up, well, I got a couple they could be making out. And
Done.
that's awesome. That's
Yep.
great, says Ray. Yeah, I know. And he would make up dialogue
yeah.
that they would respond to.
But you know what I love about hearing all these pieces of this, which none of them really surprise me other than the specifics of it, is
well,
you
you've
know,
done this too.
well, but the thing is, and you know this, it's you go and you watch Goodfellas and you finish and you go, wow, Martin Scorsese is a genius, which he is. I'm not saying
Yes.
he's a great filmmaker.
Yes.
But part of what makes him a great filmmaker is that he gets great people and allows them to do great things. So it's all these pieces that make, and again, the shot that he gave you was $1 Bill Club and follow him in.
And then very specific in the club.
Yes, in the club.
Absolutely orchestrated,
And I had
choreographed.
no doubt about it. But
Which
but-
I had some room to modify, absolutely, but mostly I was terrified of seeing lights and reflections.
Of course, but the thing is, had that shot just been following down the stairs, around the corner, into the club, and doing all that orchestrated great stuff, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as interesting. Because the great thing about that is that as he's walking down, first of all, he establishes that this is his world and he knows every piece of it, and he's saying hi to them, and this and
he's
everybody
paying
knows
them
it,
off.
and he's paying them off. So he's a big guy, but also
And that
it's
wasn't
just-
part of the original.
Yeah, but that's what a great actor does. Is he
Yes.
these are pieces of my personality.
Yes.
But it's also like it's this big cacophony that's going on. And then as you get in the next room into the part that Marty
Yes.
was important, it settles down, and now it's okay. Now here's this
And
story.
now the first AD and the second ADs, they totally
I'm sure.
wired that fucker. And unbelievable, the
but
choreography.
even to the point where he pushes in and she says, "What do you do again?" And he says, "I'm in." What does he say? "I'm in construction" or something like that.
like
And I think she
doesn't
says, "Your
feel like
hands
it
don't look
to-
good."
yeah,
And
right.
then he goes, "Shh," and you just even the speed that you go over to, is it Henny Youngman? I think.
And ultimately,
It's just it's all so orchestrated. It's great because the opening is, even though it's orchestrated, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's just this big, big thing, and then it becomes very quiet and very specific. It's
so
fantastic.
they had that choreographed whole deal. Then I was able to massage it and say, okay, what if he's a little further back?
Yeah.
I would love to be able to pan over to him, and then I will make a move and get closer when I pan back. And then when I do this and when so I certainly took over ownership
Of course.
of that blocking.
But again, that's probably because Marty and Michael go, okay, we know what we want, and here's the guy who knows how to use this stuff really well. So he'll just finesse it even better because he knows how this.
I don't
this
know.
Thing works.
I just did what I had to do.
and
I
they
don't know what
trusted
they were
it. Yeah.
thinking. But the point is that we did several double system rehearsals, meaning sound recording separately, me videotaping separately, and then we developed very quickly a double system synced playback. Okay, I'll go to the clap and I'll freeze the frame, and then when I hear you rolling audio and I hear the clap, that's when I'll release the pause and we'll have a double system playback for Marty.
Oh, okay. Wait, a double system playback meaning?
Meaning there is no sync between the camera, the video playing back from my recorder, onboard recorder, and the audio separate on a Nagra.
Oh, so you mean for watching playback?
For
after
watching
the
a
fact.
playback in
I got
sync
you.
with
Yes.
sound and picture.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
We were not at the level where we are today.
So it got close.
So I wanted to be able to show Marty that with the dialogue and all the stuff we had made up, which he had no idea about.
Did he know the music that he was using for that, or was that totally after the fact?
I have no idea.
Okay, because the music works so perfectly with that scene. But that's
don't
probably him and I think his...
No, I'd never heard it when we were doing this.
I'm sure that has to do with him and who's his editor. His editor is
You'll have to look it up. I'm not going to remember.
I can't think of her last name. But
So no, I think that's all post probably.
Yeah,
I don't know if he had an inkling beforehand.
Yeah.
I mean, again, in retrospect, I was thinking maybe he was just going to do a voiceover and maybe the music for this long.
But it became this iconic thing that just
Yeah, so flash forward. Okay, Marty, let's show you the last take we did.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of smoke, and it's a club.
Oh, actually, okay, yeah. In the
And
club.
Marty has asthma, which was on and off a problem.
Okay.
So he has an oxygen tank and a mask. He's trying to protect himself when he can.
Yeah.
So we're sitting down and we're watching the playback, and I'm like, fuck is this? What is it? I've just taken over his movie, and I've just directed the whole first half of it. And I'm like...
Just because you're excited and you're making something and
but is it what he wants?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't ask him, is it okay if I just fucking did it. Joe will let me hang out or support me wherever he can.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So how's he going to react? And I'm looking at him, and he's just watching it, I'm looking at him, and all of a sudden he jumps up. No! I said, oh God, I totally fucked up. I thought that was the end of my career. This is terrible. And I said, what? I said, the table, it's got to just come out of nowhere and fly up into the lens. And you don't understand. When I was a kid, my parents brought me to a club, and that was the thing that caught my. That was what it's all about. The table appearing out of nowhere, and then the camera has to fly after the table, just fly in space, and then okay, Marty, we can do it. No, we can do it. It's like I'm going to kill him because he's breathing the smoke and his asthma's going to kill him. And I mean, first time taking over his movie and he hates me. Now I'm killing him because I'm making him breathe the smoke.
Oh my gosh, that's wow.
And that was it. That was the only comment. That was the only thing that he said about any of it. He may have had private conversations with Ray and Lorraine, but I don't remember anything changing from when we rehearsed.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's just great. What a great story.
Awesome, and I survived it.
Yeah. Well, not only
Like,
you survived
oh, shit.
but you actually. I mean, look. Like I said, Charles Papper and I used to watch. We used to tear that shot apart. I mean, and just because we want to know everything about it. That's what I grew up on. Those shots.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the Raising Cain shot.
Oh, cool.
Which a lot of people don't know.
It's
It's
a
not a movie.
low budget movie, by the way.
But it's a great. It's actually I like that movie. But Brian DePalma, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's this shot with I don't remember who it is. It's three actors in it. I can't remember who it is. It's
There's really no
can see
big
them,
star
yeah.
actors, which is also important.
Yeah.
Because they are all character actors.
But you know the one
really.
I'm talking about, where they're up high and
Up
then
high,
they
yeah,
go down
yeah,
those
yeah.
stairs, and
Yes.
you actually go off center. What do you call it?
Crooked.
Slanted with the stairs. But so what was the reason? Was that your decision? Was that something he
Nope.
wanted? Because it's such a
I don't want to
fascinating-
do that.
It's
That's
such a
fucking
fast-
hard to do.
I know it's
Well, I
impossible
would never
to-
come up with that
and you
idea.
do it so well. So basically, for anybody who hasn't seen this, it's a very wide shot of three people walking and talking up on like a second or third level or something like
Above
that.
us.
And then they come down
Across
this set of stairs. That's a set of stairs with a landing and a set of stairs that go down.
Yeah.
And you're going down on an obviously across the way on an exact same
Right.
set of stairs, right?
Right.
And instead of just following them down, you actually tilt the cameras to
What
the
was
right.
anamorphic?
And okay, so that it goes with the line of the tilt of the stairs.
Well, otherwise I'd chop somebody's head off, wouldn't I?
Well, you were pretty wide. No, you would have.
Not wide enough.
Oh, so was
You'd have
that?
seen just a head here and some feet over
So
there.
was that the reasoning for it?
Well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, but it evolved from other decisions. Now that one, as I say low budget because it had to be available light, and there was no chance if
Well,
we
there's big
didn't get it.
skylights in there or something. I think.
Yeah, it was open
There's
to
an
the sky,
atrium or something.
so it's
yeah.
available light.
Yeah.
There wasn't any like if it goes past this point, we'll just turn up the light. There weren't any lights. It was a low budget film.
Yeah.
So it had to get done before it got dark. So
Okay.
there was a time
That helps.
ticking.
Or doesn't.
And also there was an elevator.
Yeah.
And the sound man, who was brilliant, wanted to be sure to get actual sound as the scene was unfolding in the elevator. So he had to wire the elevator. He had to buy some extra cable and route it along with the elevator cables to make sure he had a mic in there that would carry. I mean, everybody was like, we're going to fucking do this.
Yeah,
Because
it's
DePalma was the one. He said, yeah, we're going to start up there and they're going to walk around and go down these stairs and another level and they get in the elevator and go down to a further level.
Yeah.
So it's all about that journey.
Yeah.
How we did it, that's up to
That
Steve
was,
Burham.
and you
and
guys
me.
figure it out now. Yeah.
So Steve and I had a relationship already.
This is
He-
the cinematographer.
yeah, Steve Burham. And he was one of my major mentors,
Oh.
caused me to think about things. What? Really, Steve? Larry, just do it. Okay. Huh. So one of those came as I had rehearsed with the actors. I did the usual thing. All the little bits that happened in that shot are, again, things that I did. Like, I'm preceding three of them, and they're all in a nice shot.
Yeah.
But then to go down the two parallel stairs,
second set of stairs.
I got to be much wider
Yeah.
suddenly.
Yeah.
From 5 feet in front of them, I have to be like 15 feet or something. How do I do that?
Yeah.
Does the camera just race away? That's not going to work. So I say to the woman who's playing the psychiatrist,
Yeah.
I say, you don't know where you are in this building, right? They do,
Yeah.
but they're following you, right? So why don't you just go straight at this intersection
Yeah.
and they'll realize, oh, she doesn't know where she's going. Run
Yeah,
and grab her and bring her back. And while that's happening, I'm widening to hold them all.
And again, for anybody who hasn't seen this shot, but I'll probably try to post it when this goes up. But the three of them are talking, and she's like the absent-minded professor,
Yes.
right? And so she just keeps. They want to turn right, and they sort of stop to turn right. She just keeps going,
Yes.
and they sort of grab her and pull her back.
Right.
She does it 2 or 3 times. in
Yes,
the shot.
well-
but then that just forces your frame
Yeah,
wider.
so that's
wider
why
naturally.
I did that, and that's why I suggested it, and that's why they did it beautifully.
It's a great
And I
piece
wanted
of business.
there are other bits in there too, like I at one point at the bottom of those double stairs
Yeah.
that we talked about, I wanted to breathe out and breathe in. I mean, I'm always trying to change the frame instead of cutting. I want some
sort of
way that
accordion in and out and tighter and wider.
to
and,
show something more this way and then more that.
Yeah.
So I actually told those guys, and again, Brian trusted me implicitly from the very beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, fuck, I'll do it. So she's going ahead. The guys are behind. I would follow behind them for a while instead of being in front of them all the time.
Yep.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And as she's going down the hall, I said, "Why don't you guys make fun of her?" Well,
That's right. She's walking ahead, and they're sort of like mimicking her.
Yeah, I said, just have fun with her. Make fun of her, and then
great.
run to catch up to her because.
But again, I'm guessing some of this comes from you going, "I'm getting bored. Give me something
Yes.
to look at. Give me something,
Yes, but it needs to tell the story.
Absolutely.
Let's amplify it somehow.
Yeah. What can you give me?"
Yeah. And the relationship was clear from the beginning. They don't believe her. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll humor her. And we'll ask her some questions, we'll humor her. So then I said, you got to run to catch her before she goes out the door or something. And stop, have a little bit of, and then go to the elevator.
But all this gives you the ability to get wider
and I
and get
rush
tighter,
back
and a
with
reason
them,
to do
and we
it.
stop her, and I stop with them, and then we have a little of this, and they say, let's go here, we go in the elevator.
And then when you went in the elevator, you're going from a single to a two shot, I think, but it's angle. You're going up and down. I'm assuming that there was just no other room in the elevator to pan back and forth.
It's anamorphic.
Yeah.
It's wider lens, I suppose,
And
but
it's a small elevator, so.
this is it. She's short, they're tall. What the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
So there's different ways to handle it. Plus, I wanted to build in a little bit of the elevator only went down one floor, but the dialogue lasts for a few floors.
Oh, okay.
So I want to hide when the elevator actually stops, which is almost impossible with a Steadicam.
Oh, yeah.
So I asked one of the guys to just shift when it happens, and I can. It's
Fill
if
that
I'm
frame and
reacting
give
to
you a
him.
reason to reframe on him or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can bury the little bump.
Yep.
And then we have to manufacture a bump. And part of that would be coming out of the diagonal into, okay, we've landed. And so a lot of little tricks and bits and pieces. But back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
So Steve had watched me do a couple of takes. And I wanted, it was my choice, when they were crossing from left to right up above us across this open, what would you call that? I mean, it was an open skylight
It's like
area.
an atrium or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm on one side, they're on the other. They're above me, and I've got an anamorphic lens.
Yep.
And I don't want to just track with them. So I want them to cross through the frame.
Yeah.
So I start with them to the left of me, and then gradually I'm moving slower than they are. They're right across from me, and they're in front of me.
Yep.
And part of that was also now they have to come downstairs to me, and that's where it'll all close up and I'll meet them. So if I have this one speed, it will go irrevocably, like the phrase of the piano.
Yep.
I will end up perfectly positioned when they come down to me into finally a 3-shot thing. So I'm doing it, I'm panning, and Steve was like, Larry, what? Dutch the frame. What do you mean? Well, look at the shot. And if you're just tilting up, especially with anamorphic and just framing with horizon, I mean, the actual level
to the earth,
then their balcony they're walking along is way cocked in the frame. I was like, that's it. Just line it up with it. Steve, you don't know how hard that is to do with the Steadicam and everything else I'm doing.
It's hard enough to keep them straight. But
what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay. So then I had to fight everything else I had to take out a tilt.
It's
and
an
then
amazing
go
shot.
the other way.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, how do I get out of it? So I'll use as they come down the stairs at me, I will use that to slowly
pull
the
you
frame
back to center.
To level.
But the thing about all of it is when you watch it, it all makes sense. Like with the dialogue that's doing, even in the
thank
elevator.
God.
No, it does. But even in the elevator, when you go up Dutch to her, because of what she's talking about is
once we've taken the genie out of the bottle,
exactly.
So that gave me, Steve, us the ability to, when I'm walking across to them, and it's right that we've already established this now. She's going on her own, and they're hanging back and making fun of her.
Yeah.
So you can't do it. The distance I had, the lens I had, if we're normal, it doesn't hold.
Yeah.
They're out of the frame.
So it
She's
was
below the
necessity,
frame.
basically.
So,
Yeah.
So now I have to figure out how to get into it. And it was like, that was brutally hard. Like, as she starts to dip down in the frame, because she's in front of them, I slowly
You let her drag the frame down, basically.
drag it down, and
Yep.
then I have to hold it. But then there's landings.
Yep.
So I never really quite figured out how to handle that. I mean, they go straight for a while, and I'm going straight for a while. Do I keep it in? Do I take it out? Do I put it? I never quite.
Well, but I think it just maintains all the way through,
I
even though
think
it's
so,
sideways. But you don't think
But
about
I
it.
have to stop tilting and then start
yeah.
tilting and all this shit. But at least on the end, I'm thinking, if I stay behind them,
There's a way to pull back.
there's a way to pull back up very organically
Yeah.
as they lift the frame, which is why I wanted to be behind them there,
Sure.
which means how am I going to catch up? Which is like, why don't you guys hang back a little and start to make fun of her again and then run up and catch up? And that's
bridges
all,
that gap,
that's all
right?
about that ending the stair
Yep.
part.
Yeah,
So
that's a great shot.
anyway, we do all of that. And now I have the freedom, because we've built it into the structure of the shot already for the elevator, like you say.
Yeah.
It's close. You can't do it. It's a,
But there's
okay.
just, there wasn't enough room in that elevator to do it any other way, I'm assuming, to
Correct.
hold those frames. But now it made sense because of what you were doing at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it gave me the freedom to do that without it being
You've
out of
established
character.
You've established the rules.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do our first rehearsal or take with Brian, and we're watching the playback, and Brian is watching right in front of the little monitor.
Yeah.
And Steve is like over here, and I'm like behind Brian, and we're all watching. And we get to not the first, you don't see that first cock. You know, when I'm across the, the what did we call it?
Atrium.
Atrium. Thank you for that. Across the atrium, you know, because if I'm good at it, and I wasn't perfect, but I worked hard to just keep it lined up.
Yep.
So it doesn't look like
Well,
you're
there are
cocking.
so many verticals and horizontals in there that there's a lot to give it away. Let's put it that way.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I had to line the bottom of the frame up perfectly with like the rail or the
yeah.
floor or something. But meanwhile, I'm desperately uncocking and recocking to do that.
Yeah.
And but that's not too noticeable. But then we get to going down those stairs, and I do that, and Brian goes,
He turns his head sideways as he's watching dailies.
and then he turns around
playback.
and he looks at Steve, and Steve goes, and he looks at me, and I go, and then he turns back, and then uncocks at the bottom.
Yeah.
Every replay, he
would
did
turn his
exactly
head.
that. Yeah, and it
But he
was
obviously
almost
didn't mind
it
it.
was almost
That's
to
funny.
say, look what you're making me do.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys, but look what I have to do.
That's great.
But no, that was it. That was the only
But
comment,
he was okay
the only
with it.
feedback.
That's funny.
Brian
Oh,
doesn't
God.
talk a lot
Yeah.
back then to camera or actors much,
Okay.
which is cool because then I could.
You can do it. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
But he counted on that
Yeah.
from our first encounter,
Yeah.
which was who started it? It was Untouchables. It wasn't you, right? It was, but there was a operator. I think we were in Chicago, so I think he was, and he did the first shot or two Steadicam shots.
Yeah.
because he was there. He's a local guy.
yeah.
And then he was unavailable. Was it Greg Lunsgaard? Maybe.
Could have been. It was a
I'm
while
not
ago. I'm
absolutely
not
sure.
Yeah.
And so then I got a call because I'd already worked with Steve. I hadn't worked with Brian. So he said, Larry, you have to, beginning of many films for me was Steve's mellifluous tones.
Yeah.
You got to come to Chicago. What? Anyway, I show up and we have, no, we don't. Yes, we do. Steve had a Mitchell Finder, which has a wide, you could almost get two people to kind of see through it, but with a taking lens.
The side finder off of the old Mitchell
Yes.
BNC.
So we
right?
use that as his finder with the actual lens, with frame lines available inside that finder.
Yeah.
And so he could line something else and move his head, and somebody else could move in,
Yeah.
and so we could share information that way.
Yep.
But it doesn't start that way. And as I learned, it became his practice after this, Brian. Okay, action. And we got actors talking and moving, and Brian's just following him. And it became either this, and crew would like, Dolly, bring the crane.
Just holding your hands up to frame it.
But if you did this, that's Steadicam.
If you grab the, yeah.
So if he held his fist out, okay, that was it. And if he got really close to somebody, like 2 feet away.
That's a closer.
That's a closer. And then if you backed away a little bit, that's wider.
Yep.
That's the only information we get from him. So we went through this whole scene with him. I don't remember if he did that yet.
Yeah.
Or just walked close.
But you basically just watch him for visual cues of what he actually wanted as opposed to him saying it.
Well, I'd never seen him do this, so yeah.
Oh, that was your first time. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we go through this whole long, elaborate shot, and turns to me. Okay, but hey, Brian, listen, do you mind if when they come here, I want to get wider, could we get across? Get across? I said, and at this point, could they hesitate hesitate there? And it was like third or fourth time I said, I got it. Thanks, Brian.
Yes.
And he left.
I see where this is going. Yeah. And then you just did what you had to do.
I did what I did, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
There's a few flaws in that shot, but it was a long, unbroken take, and I had big star actors who were fine with doing what I asked because it made sense what I asked them to do, but I didn't interfere much.
Yeah.
Except when I had to. But they got it anyway. So that was pretty good. But the next day, Brian would always see dailies before anybody else. Okay. A little private screening. And we were, I think, with other crew members, mostly camera, but walking down probably to go to the screening. And he was coming back.
Okay.
And
so
as he walked,
just seen them.
Yeah. And he walked past us. And then he stopped. Larry, what? That was good.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Something worked.
And the rest of the crew members are like, he never talks to anybody. What the hell?
That's great.
So that was the beginning of my relationship with Brian.
Yeah,
it was
and
like,
you've done a bunch of amazing work with him, obviously.
And he gives us, Steve, particularly me, when I'm doing it, the freedom to interpret his master plan.
Yeah.
First time I saw Brian was in Philadelphia before I was in the business, and a friend of mine was an assistant on Blow Out.
Yeah.
Blow Out, not Blow Up, because Blow Up was Antonioni, one of my very favorite.
And blowing up.
That was Antonioni. It was a different movie. This is John Travolta. Blow Out. He's a sound man, and he hears an explosion.
You're right.
And it's a blowout, not a. So I always get that confused.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were shooting that in Philadelphia at a department store. Jack, my friend, said, "Hey, listen, why don't you come by? You want to go?" Sure. And there was Brian. He was sitting on a high chair, a director's like chair. And he's got headphones on. Mm-hmm. I said, wow, he's listening to all the ADs and everything that's going around. That's amazing. Wow, look at how he's directing without directing. This is fucking cool. And then AD comes, Brian, we're ready. And he takes the headphones off, stops his little
He's
iPod.
listening to music.
Yeah.
Back then it was probably a Walkman, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so I'm
great.
like, wait a minute. But the other thing is that he will maintain that disaffected, I'm here to oversee, but I'm not paying attention, but he sees everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important to know, right? Even if you don't think they know they're watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had things where I've had directors come up to me and go, just so we're on the same page, I know what you did there. I'm okay with it, but I'm aware of what you did there because I didn't do what they asked me to. I changed it to make the shot work, And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But that's their way of saying you didn't change the shot, but
I'm still in charge, by the way.
It's exactly
I approve of what you've done.
But I'm aware. Yeah.
I've developed, because I got in early.
Yeah.
So I set what it is. And so I come on with it's already predefined that I take over a lot that normally you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I have to do it because otherwise it won't fucking work. And I'm the only one in the room that knows that.
Yep.
But they get it and allow me to do it. But when I have new directors, at times there are moments that have happened.
Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that?
Why is he talking to my actor?
Yeah, why is he talking to my actors? Yeah.
That happened. Robert Redford on, what was the movie? The Horse Whisperer.
Yeah.
And I actually lived on a farm not far from here where the real Horse Whisperer, who was the consultant on that film, came. And I filmed for him a session that he did locally. So, I mean, I knew a lot about horse whispering, and I knew the guy.
Yeah.
So, who's the star, the woman, the young, then,
In The Horse Whisperer?
Yeah, I can't. Oh, there I go again. My brain.
Believe me. Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
Yep.
So she was a young woman at that point. And so, and that was my first, I think it was my first job with Bob Richardson,
Okay.
who first, when I came on and I said hello to him, he tried to do what he usually does, sort of dominate. He tried to tweak my nipples, but I fended him off. That's his first move.
Wow.
But like, let's establish this. And he said, and then he said something about, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this. And it was like defining rigidly my role, which was to be his servant kind of.
Okay.
Well, he operates everything on his own. Anybody else operates for him, it just throws it, makes him crazy because anybody else is going to fuck up his
Because
work
he
of
doesn't
art.
have control over the frame. Yeah.
And it's going to ruin the work of art that he's
Yep.
meticulously planned for,
Yep.
and as every aspect in his head. And so suddenly I come in, like, what? Who's this guy? So he defined some things. I said, well, I can't do that. Sorry, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And then, oh, wait. All right, let's start over. Okay. So now I've established my position
Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is good advice for anybody starting out, by the way.
Maybe I'll cut it out, maybe I won't. But anyway.
But in any case, then I was going to do a shot with Scarlett, and she was there getting ready. I forget exactly the circuit, but it came up and
Scarlett
said,
Johansson.
yeah. Hey, how are you? I'm Larry. I'm going to be working with you on this, use a Steadicam and doing a shot. Hey, listen, I just let you know, I mean, this is so cool, this project, because I know the Horse Whisperer. I know him. I work with him. She's like, really? And we started having this conversation, and then this head came in kind of between us and turned to me, and Bob was like, I forget what he said, but it was like, why are you talking to my actor?
Talking to the actor.
Basically. It's like, okay.
But I will say this, there is something to take out of that, because this is a business of personalities, and you have to read the room and know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to do something that's totally innocent, like you did there, and it may piss some people off. So you have to be aware of the personalities.
I don't know if it pissed him off, but he was rightly worried about my contaminating the whole operation.
Yeah, pissed off might not be the right, but there was concern. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And he wanted that not to be another thing he'd have to deal with. Now, but that was a violation of my normal protocol too, because it was the Horse Whisperer. I'm so excited about it. I knew him, and I do want to share this excitement with her.
You're not even talking as a filmmaker, though. You're just a person.
Exactly, which is the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that was for Bob, but for me, thinking back, it was like, after we had worked on something, and maybe it's after the film was done, then we talk about that.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really appropriate, but I couldn't help it. I was so excited about the Horse Whisperer.
Yeah.
So there have been other times, like Silence of the Lamb with Jonathan Demme, oh, God.
I get to work once with him for a day, and it was actually a joy.
Absolutely.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
But as usual, doing the stuff in the basement with Jody, early on, I was like talking to her and say, so Jody, I think you should this. And then he realized that I was like taking over, I think, and he came around the corner. He's like, what are you talking about? And I mean, after saying, well, what I'm doing is that. He said, oh. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I'm guessing that he realized that what you were doing was helping facilitate what you needed to give him what he wants.
Because he's smart.
As opposed to changing the performance, changing the dynamic of the shot, changing,
Right.
Yeah.
Which is always, so that's the important lesson. No matter what you do, first of all, you need to serve the story, number one. Number two, you have to serve the director, and you have to serve the actors in the scene. And you have to be ultimately, if you have the skills and the experience to back it up, you have to be a player on the same level as everyone else. So it's a collaborative effort. What's great about single take shots is that it's the one chance that a crew has of understanding exactly what we're doing and exactly what their responsibilities are and what they don't have to do to cover their ass just in case. Especially the way I work it, it's very precise. Mm-hmm. There isn't like he'll go one way and then a little later. No, it's exactly this.
This is what we're doing.
This is it. This is what you see. You don't see that. It lets everybody get excited to participate. Say, hey, Larry, what if I do that? fuck, that's great.
That's great.
Let's
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to talk because everybody sees the sync playback or live. They see it, and they just come in and fix the things that
Yeah,
you're
you
revealing.
you just said something that I think is so important. Is that a good idea can come from anywhere.
It has to.
And you have to listen to those ideas. And you have to be able to judge, like, yeah, it doesn't work. But that's great. I don't care if the craft service person comes up and goes, hey, this would be great if we did. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. If it tells the story, it tells the story.
Give me more. Give me more. Help me out here.
It's collaborative. Yeah.
So, and a lot of times, like, I manufactured that little scene with Jack Nicholson. I don't know what to do. But realistically, that you should be that open.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to do here. What's the problem? I got to get to the doorway, but there's no room unless, if you go deeper, that might let me get through with the lens before I have to pan.
Sure, yeah.
Is there any way to do that? Does it make sense? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So, and you have to judge right away how to manage that situation.
Absolutely.
Or for, okay, so many stories. De Niro.
Yeah.
My first experience with De Niro. I flew. I guess we had done Ghostbusters or something. It was Ivan Reitman, I think, maybe directing. I forget the movie.
He did. Ivan Reitman did.
But after that,
Ghostbusters.
it was some other separate one with De Niro.
Oh yeah, because De Niro wasn't in Ghostbusters.
Was he?
No,
he was in it.
No, he wasn't.
You sure he wasn't a cameo with that big guy with the marshmallow
he was
costume?
in the costume.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Nobody knows who
Nobody
was in
knows.
that costume.
So you're working with De Niro on.
So I'm flying in, and I forget. I shouldn't remember. I shouldn't forget the DP, but who had brought me in.
Okay.
And to do a single scene. And in that scene, and I arrive, and they've already kind of done a rough vlogging. So I got my camera team with me then. I said, so what is it? And I said, well, he's going to open this door and look out at the ballroom, and he's going to cross. It's empty, like this. There's hardly anybody in it. And he's going to walk across and talk to those guys. And, oh, okay. All right. We have a stand-in? Oh, yeah. And somebody worked with Bob a lot, so he
which
knows
is always a
exactly
plus,
what he
yeah,
will.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So let's open the door. Show me how would you open the door, what Bob was doing. Opens the door and looks around. I say, okay, tell you what, with my finder, let's make a mark for me here. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be. Now let's make a mark for Bob right there. What? Well, make a mark where he's standing, just so I know. We never give him marks.
Yeah.
What?
And
No.
they've obviously been shooting for a couple of weeks at this time. They're deep in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, no, even if he doesn't know it and he doesn't look for it,
it's
it's
for me.
my reference.
Yeah.
I know how far away he is from me, and I know if I have to back up or not or whatever.
Yeah.
So let's do a mark.
They put a mark down on the floor, scared. Yeah.
So anyway, I figure out the whole thing, and I've already understood, especially from that encounter, that I can't trust necessarily where he will go and how he will go. So I said, let's rearrange some chairs. So I moved tables and chairs so that there's no one obvious path for him, which will serve my purposes.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't have to talk to him about it, have anything, because I've already been told, you
Naturally
know, you don't
gonna go in that direction.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that'll
yeah,
help me do what I need to do.
Yeah.
So, okay, first rehearsal. Action. Bob opens the door and he's looking at me, and then he's supposed to look around the room. So he goes,
He moves from side to side as
well, he's got to, he can't see through the
can't
camera.
see through the camera.
I'm like, it's not me. And we go through the rest of the shot. And that all works pretty good
Yeah.
because I've created,
Yeah.
what the hell am I going to do? I don't really know what to do. Okay. I said, okay, I'll really watch him. And as soon as he wants to look this way, I'll do a quick reaction and response with him, countering.
Yeah.
So that he
So
doesn't
can see past you. And
Yeah. So I'm moving out of his way
it's almost
rather
like you're getting the camera out of his eye line.
Yes.
Yeah.
back and forth and trying to bury it into his movement. So it looks like, and it worked. It was pretty cool.
There you go.
Okay. So Bob doesn't do those things. And another film with him then where, okay, so this is good. What's the name of it? Night in the City.
Night in the City, okay.
Night in the City. And After at wrap, I'm asked to please come a little conference, and it's with the director, the producer, the DP, and Bob.
Okay.
And they're in the middle of a stairwell where this is taking place, like a courtroom, and he's a lawyer. And they said, so we got this shot we'd like to do. Wondering, can you do it? I said, well, what is it? Well, it starts close up on him closing the folder of file shit and everything, and then comes up to him, and then he walks out the room, and he goes down the stairs, and he goes down, and it's complicated stairs.
Yeah.
Big, because they're narrow in the inside radius of these curving stairs and all of this. Like, this is complicated. And a landing, and then another set of stairs, and another landing, and then he stops and talks to a few people, and then he goes down,
Oof.
and I'm like, okay. Okay, with this second team, so let's do it, action. And I'm walking. And of course, when we get to the stairs, I have to walk backwards down the stairs.
Yep.
And every step is 6 inches, and every step he takes is 3 feet.
Yeah.
This is going to be a problem.
Yep.
Bob doesn't use marks. Okay. All right.
So basically, how are you going to keep him from overtaking you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's put. I have the stand on a mark that's a good distance for me for the shot. I said, put a line right across tape, right across there. Okay, great. Now I go down like a few steps and so mark this really well so I can see it, so anybody can see it. Right. Okay. So whoever the AD was, I need I need an extra to across for me, and New York.
Yeah.
And say, okay, so here's your job. Bob's going to come out of there. He's going to go right down the stairs. But I've got to have him stop momentarily.
Just so you can get
So I can get us 3 steps down.
Yeah,
See how I marked that stairs there with a big diagonal and all that kind of stuff? Here's the thing. If Bob crosses this line before I get to those stairs, I'm going to panic. I'm going to run backwards. I'm going to trip, fall. I'm going to break my neck, and it's on you.
There you go.
You're going to kill me. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
You cannot allow him to cross that line until I get to, okay?
Yeah.
How am I going to do that? Whatever you got to do. But what if he doesn't stop? Hit him. I said, hey, I'm counting on you. Your life is in my hands.
Yeah.
So we do like 3 takes. Oh, no, the huddle first. Can you do this?
Yeah.
I said, okay, and it goes all the way out to the street and beyond.
Of course.
Well, if Bob will do 6 full rehearsals with me before the first take,
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
And now everybody turns to him, producer, director, DP, AD, everything. And he's like, what? Yeah. So, Bob, if you will give me, which you never do, if you'll give me 6 full rehearsals all the way through, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got 3.
Okay.
I mean, I knew I wasn't
I
going
was
to
going
get.
to say, you would have asked for 9 if you wanted 5.
Yes. But so it was like, wow.
Yeah.
This is a breakthrough.
There you go.
Okay, so that's encouraging, but I still have that issue at the top of the stairs, and I know there's no way I can.
Yep.
So we do like 3 takes, and then Bob comes to me, really mad. Larry, what? He just told me that you told him to hit me. I said, yes, I did.
Yeah.
What? Why? I said, okay, so here's the problem. There's a line. Here's my line. You have to say, so you mean I just have to wait here behind the line until you get to the 3rd step? I said, that's it. Well, he didn't have to hit me. Really? Okay.
So now he's willing to work with you. That's great.
There's more to the story, though, because after that, he started asking me about technical things and stuff. And then he told me, I'm going to direct my first film. So he was starting to change his perspective on all of this. Something else. So that was part of it, too.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And then he couldn't do enough for me.
Yeah.
He had made a big transition the way he acted.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's very cool. Well, listen, I could listen to these stories for 9 years, but I got to get going at some point. Let me ask you one final question.
You said before you had only one question for me.
Well, I lied. I'm like a director. Directors don't tell you the truth either, right? We're gonna
okay.
Hey, Larry, we're gonna do one more take of this. Just one more take of this. Well, this has been fantastic, and I thank you. The thing that I leave everybody with is this.
What's my favorite book? What?
Do you have any advice for up and coming operators? People who are transitioning from A to B, moving up, et cetera, on how to succeed, and or what do you wish you knew earlier on that you've learned since then, which both I think have similar.
Well, they're okay. I'll try to keep it simple.
Simple's great.
There's some basics about composition, framing, things that you learn from watching movies and paying attention to what they're doing and understanding that 90% is shit, mindless bullshit. Don't emulate that. But when you see something that really works, try to figure out why. And usually it's doing less. It's almost always doing as little as you can possibly do. There have been a few moments from masters that I've worked with, like one of the, and I mean, they're wild and varied. You get it whichever ones you. So Steve Burnham, at one point, I asked him, so listen, Steve, why do you use the C-series anamorphic lenses? I mean, they're kind of old, they're kind of soft, aren't they? I mean, why do you do that? There's so much more sharper lenses. He said, Larry, what? So the film looks more in focus. What are you talking about? So, well, if you have a really sharp lens, you're doing anamorphic. Let's say you're doing a close-up. It's 1/3 an actor, 2/3 the background. If it's super sharp, the background looks really soft. But if the foreground is a little soft, the background doesn't look as much out of focus. The film looks more in focus. So I use soft lenses so the film looks more in focus. Whoa. Beginning of the end to assume that new things were better or that an improvement in technology was helpful or not. Step back, think about the whole. Another example, and it was like, I'm a Steadicam operator. I got this cool thing and I make these cool shots. I did the first and maybe only collaboration with Gordon Willis, who goes, Garrett was approached by Gordon and he said, yeah, you want to work with Larry. And so, hey, Larry, can you come over, talk to Gordon Willis? What? And then so he had a test for me. He said, this isn't a test for you. I need to know what it could do. And it was a walk and talk movie. It was Robert Downey Jr., the pickup artist. Okay. So he's going to walk along and try to pick up women on the move. So he's got for the first time to deal with that, like long sidewalks and all. So the test was he had the AD and a second AD, I think, walking down a sidewalk. He said, okay, so Larry, I'd like to have it framed here, okay? Now, I'd like you to have a suggestion of a haircut on the taller man. I don't want a haircut. I just want a suggestion of a haircut. Okay, now you see that tree behind him? I'd like to keep the branch just off his right shoulder. And it should just stay there, okay? And I want that same frame. And as they walk and you step off the street, nothing should change and back on. So I'm like, oh, shit. So he defined the shit out of it. So really, they should have been on a treadmill with a chroma key, and a backdrop and, but I have to with a Steadicam. It's the first time I'm being really challenged way beyond what I challenged myself to do in terms of offering precision and simple, clear, straightforward ideas that don't do anything but one thing. Mm-hmm. Steadicam does almost anything, and that's the problem. So how do you learn how to not do all that shit and do just one simple idea? And the problem is when you see a slightest deviation from that simple, pure idea, it's really obvious. Yeah. So now, oh my God, I got to up my game. But he's like my
he's Gordon Willis.
Father. Yeah. He is like helping this young guy who obviously cares and is good, but doesn't get a lot. Mm-hmm. And so there's one point where I'm supposed to bring in a wide shot as Robert Downey Jr. runs across the street at us and then tries to pick up the Vanessa, I think what's her name? Yeah, all right, you can look it up. Anyway, pick up a girl, comes across the street. So it's a really wide shot, and then it's closer, and then finally it's like a 2-shot, perfectly framed, of course. Yeah. Larry, what? Here's what you want to do. When it's really wide in the beginning like that, keep the frame right near the bottom of his feet and show the trees and the sky behind him. It's beautiful, right? And then as he approaches you, you'll keep that frame in the bottom of his feet, slowly let the top frame come down till it's near the top of his head. Then keep the top of the frame near the top of his head and let the bottom frame come up until, I mean, this is the most basic compositional rules in the world.
Yeah.
But I've never been asked to do that. And it never really occurred to me. Mostly I'm making a cool move.
You're moving, yeah.
I'm doing a cool move.
That's great.
Gordon is like, no, that's not how it happens. And so he taught me very specifically at times the value and almost requirement of discipline. Another example was, I've got this new tool that he hasn't used before, so I know I guess. Yeah. Anyway, at one point, he comes up to a woman who's being dragged by 2 huge dogs and supposed to stop on a mark. Well, Gordon is all about you stop on your fucking mark or you're not in the movie.
Lit. Yeah.
But every time they try to stop, the dogs drag her another foot or 2. Good. Like the 6th take, maybe. I'm looking, and we're under the trees, shade. It's very gentle fill. There's nothing that specific. There's no hard light. There's no nothing. It's like, hell, I'll just step back when they take that one extra step. It's really repeatable.
Yeah.
So I do it. God! What? Larry, what? You missed your mark. Yeah, but Gordon, they missed their mark. You missed your mark. Like, the fuck? So a whole worldview changing for me, at least under his tutelage. You figure out exactly what you want to do. You precisely do that. And you do the simplest version of that is possible to do. That's how you make a movie. And particularly, I watched some light too. It was staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched him in a museum set big with a bunch of lights, very specific. And the gaffer put them all up. And then he took his meter out and he walked through, made a little sign language for the whoever's on that light
bring
to
it down
tighten
a little,
it up,
bring it up a little bit, whatever, yeah.
Good. Move to the next one, move to the next one, move to the next one. Every light had an absolutely perfect and pure, simple idea. It did not move more or less than it should.
Yep.
I've never seen lighting
you
like
knew
that
what he
before.
wanted. Yeah, yeah.
Mostly because partly we don't have control over assessor. Or a DP may not. And you have to shoot everywhere and all the time and all that. Although we've done some magnificent things with a moving camera, with Bauhaus particularly, but Steve Burnham as well. But still, I was like awestruck. And then when the actors stopped, not on their mark,
it was okay.
You're not lit.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, with him. With him. Yes.
And there was a light that was perfect.
Yep.
In other words, everybody's got to do exactly
what they're supposed to do.
So I'm playing with him a little bit with the Steadicam now is another component that maybe move on its own accord as no, you missed your mark. So there was and Warren, it was the beginning of a relationship with Jim Toback. He was the director. He wrote the script, and he said part of the condition of using my script, I'm the director. But so Warren Beatty was the producer, but he was also going to keep Jim under tight control because he was a wild card in many ways in his personal life and other things. So usually you'd see Warren going up to Jim and whispering in his ear, and then Jim would go over and talk to the actors like that. But at least there was a form to it.
Yeah.
There was this one shot. Robert and whoever or girl he's picking up this time come around the corner at us, and it's wide, and they get closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And then we stay at the same size, and then they stop on a mark, and they have a dialogue, and they move back. And that area, it's, again, pretty safe. By the time they get close to us, we're under the shade of trees, and there's not a lot, going on.
You get a little leeway.
No change in lighting. So just before we go to the first take, we're ready to go, and and we've done a few rehearsals, perfect. All of a sudden, I see Warren say, just a second, and he runs around the corner. I said, Oh my God. Hey, Gordon, what? Warren just went around and talked to the actors.
Boy. Yeah.
Something's going to be different.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? I mean, what if they don't stop on their
Do I
mark?
react? Yeah. Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Scowl. Darkened eyebrows. Okay. So if they keep going, I'll just keep going?
Yeah.
Yeah, do it. Okay, action. They come around double the speed they've ever rehearsed.
Nobody's told you this.
And I'm
right?
like,
Yeah.
Gordon said to go. I'm going to trust. I'm not going to look. Nothing. And we blow through that first mark and we're still wailing along. And I start to hear the incredible cacophony of noise. And it just goes on and on. I'm like, holy shit, I don't want to look. I don't want to look. I'm going to do it until somebody says, God.
Yeah.
I turn around and all the grip gear and lighting gear has been thrown into the street to allow us to keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gordon says, Warren. And they go around the corner. Lunch! But there's no one way to make movies or anything. But if I err on the side of anything, except when it makes sense, I want absolutely clear plan, perfectly worked out on all regards, particularly so that I know with my Steadicam, I'm going to have defined segments of a shot. Straight, no change of speed or direction. When there is, it's for a reason.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.